I can hear you.
And now we're unmuted. Okay. All right, the time is now 7:04 p.m. and I will call this meeting to order. May we have roll call, please?
Mayor Reichel,
Here.
Pro Tem Knott,
Here.
Trustee Britnall,
Here.
Trustee Klassen,
Here.
Trustee Flores,
Here.
Trustee Hanrahan,
Here.
Trustee Siebert.
Here.
All right, may we rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, be seated. All right, the first item on tonight's agenda is public comments. Persons desiring to make a public comment on items not on the agenda, please activate the raised hand function in the meeting program. Or Sheila, did we have any emails or phone calls in regards to non-agenda items?
No, I did not hear from anyone today, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
I do not show any raised hands at the moment.
All right, thank you. Is anyone here with us for public comment or agenda items? Okay. All right, we have no comments from the public either, so we will move on to the next item, which is the consent agenda, which contains the minutes of the October 11th, 2022 Board of Trustees meeting. Would anyone like to discuss anything on that item or make a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Motion by Mayor Pro Tem Knott to approve the consent agenda as presented, seconded by Trustee Clausen. All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All's opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Do any board members have any conflicts of interest with agenda items tonight?
Nope.
Not here.
All right, none for me either. How about any agenda changes?
No, sir.
Not here.
Given the length of the agenda, the packet, the size of the packet, I wanted to just point out one thing in case you may have missed it. At the very end of the packet is a memo from our contract planner, Mark Chain, about a land use application update. I just wanted to point that out for your information in case you missed that. And I think we're scheduling a time where we can spend some time with you on a number of different community development issues coming up, so
Okay.
Okay,
talk about that.
sounds good. The next item then is the special use permit for Canyon Creek Custom Flooring, and I will turn this over to Community Development Manager Centeno.
Yes. We're a little faster on our agenda than what I think they were thinking that we were going to be, so they should be here in the next couple minutes.
And our auditors are not here either. I might make a.
Brian Blair is on the line.
Oh, is he
He's on
here?
the Zoom
Okay.
call.
Oh,
He is
great,
here.
okay.
Okay.
Sorry about that. We can,
We can go ahead and just table the special use permit and then move on to the 2021 audit presentation by Blair and Associates. And I will turn that over to Administrator Lehman and Treasurer Tucker.
Amy, you want to take that?
Oh, you're muted.
Yeah, I can't hear you.
Amy.
Well, I'm sorry.
Here we go.
I was unmuted and then I muted myself. I was just going to turn it over to Brian and have him start his presentation.
Sounds good.
Sounds good to me too. Can everybody hear me?
We can hear you.
Yes.
Yes.
Excellent. I thought I was muted there for a second too. Okay, so I'm Brian Blair. I'm going to be going ahead and present the 2021 audit to you. What I'll do is I'll go over the highlights of the audit, and then if you have any questions at the end, I'll certainly answer those for you. Or if I don't know the answer off the top of my head, I'll get the answer and get it back to you. But does that sound good to everybody?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So where I'll start is on page 1 with the independent auditor's report, and hopefully everybody's had a chance to look at this audit, so it's not coming as a huge surprise to you. But on the second paragraph on that independent auditor's report is our opinion. Obviously, we feel the audit was, or the financial statements were presented fairly in all material respects. So we gave the audit a clean opinion. Everything looked great. So. And then on the second page of that letter on page 2, just the new item for this year as far as the independent auditor's report is concerned, you'll notice that last bullet, it says that the auditor is now required to make a judgment on the town's ability as a going concern. Obviously, we have no issues with the town as a going concern, so no problems there either. But just a new item for this year as well, I want to point out. But overall, the letter says it was a great job. Financial statements were good.
Great.
All right.
So next I'll move on to page 3. And this is where the management discussion and analysis starts. So for those that like to read, it's kind of the narrative of the financial year as far as the town is concerned. So this is where I'll spend most of my time because it's a more user-friendly edition of the audit, kind of. But this is where I'll spend most of my time. We'll touch a few things after this, and then if there's no questions, I'll let you get back to your meeting.
Okay.
But we got those 5 bullets under financial highlights. I'd like to go over those. The town's assets exceeded liabilities by 23.8 million, give or take. And that's an increase of 3.5 million from last year. Obviously, good news there. The governmental funds reported ending fund balances of 5.5, which is an increase of about 1.8. Obviously, that's good as well. Positive operations. And the third one, the general fund, getting close to 5 million. That was an increase of 1.8. So that was most of that increase for the governmental funds and the general fund, which isn't a big surprise because the other governmental funds are kind of small in comparative size. The fourth bullet, long-term liabilities decreased by about 430,000 this year, just through normal payments on the notes, with no new debt this year. And then general property taxes, tax and other taxes made up 88% or about 2.4 million of the general revenue, which is to be expected. That's kind of on par with most entities. Any questions on those financial highlights?
I don't think so.
Nope.
Looks good.
Okay, so I'll go on to the next page, and that's page, well, actually, it's going to skip a page. So page 5. So the net position, the town's combined assets again increased, and now it's at about 23.8 million. As you can see, about 9 million of that is unrestricted to meet the financial obligations of the town going forward. And then the biggest portion of that is your investment in capital assets. In that second paragraph, it's about 14.7 million, or about 62% of your net position, which again, for municipalities isn't really out of line. It's pretty on par with most governmental entities. And then in the middle there, we got a chart, and this is a comparative balance sheet from 2020 to 21. Not a whole lot of changes. There was some in the current assets for the governmental activities. You'll see it went up about 1.8 million. And really that just bleeds down into that unrestricted net position increased about 1.8 million. So just current assets, mostly cash assets. And then on the business type activities, your biggest increase was your investment in capital assets. And we'll touch on the capital asset additions a little bit later, but a lot of it was infrastructure type stuff for the water fund. And then the breakdown of the rest of the net position, you had about 140,000, and that's your table restriction. But yeah, the 9 million is unrestricted. That's about 38% of your net position. So then on to page 6. And again, another comparative chart, 2021 to 2020, as far as the profit and loss. Again, not a huge difference from year to year. You'll see in the governmental activities, your charges for services and your operating grants did go up. And that was really the biggest difference that came to that $2 million increase in net positioning as far as governmental activities. And then in the business type activities, your biggest difference from last year was the capital grants, and that was due to those capital projects you had going on. And again, 1.6 million increase in net position for business type. So positive operations in both governmental and business type, really good year for the town. Sorry. And then on to page 7, just a couple charts here, kind of giving you a graphical representation of the revenues, expenses for the town's governmental activities. Obviously, the biggest part of your revenues was sales tax and other taxes. And the biggest chunks in the expenses was your governmental expenses and your public safety. And on to page 8, you'll notice that top paragraph, business type activities increased your net position by 1.6. Charges for services was over 50% of your total revenues, which is actually kind of low. Usually you see those a lot higher in your enterprise funds. But with the capital grants and everything, that kind of lowered that amount for this year. You'll see the chart at the bottom of the page, just breaking down your net position for the 3 enterprise funds. You'll see that this last line is your increase and decrease in net position. Obviously, all funds had an increase in net position, which is good. Everything had positive operations and healthy net positions across the board. So looking good in all the enterprise funds as well. And then on page 9, just a quick note there at the top, the town budgeted for $3.5 million for expenditures, and the actual expenditures came in only about 2.7 almost. So well under budget for the general fund, which is always good, staying within your budgetary guidelines. And then you'll notice there's a chart on the last part of the page, and this is your capital assets. The first part is the governmental activities. Not any huge additions this year. I mean, you had about 420 something thousand. But your big additions were in the business type activities, were actually on the next page. And you'll see that chart there at the top. You got about 1.5 million in additions, 1.45. The biggest of that was, like I said, the distribution system, the infrastructure. And I think there was like the 7th Street project, 8th Street project, and there was a boring project for this year. So those were big chunks of capital assets that we added in there. But again, this is where most of your net position is tied up in those capital assets. And then, let's see, that's kind of the end of the MD&A. Where I'll touch next, unless there's any questions on MD&A, I should stop and ask if there's any questions in the MD&A.
I don't have any.
Okay, I'll move on. I'm actually going to skip quite a bit ahead here, if I can get my computer to cooperate, to page 36. And I'll give everybody a little bit of time to get there. I'll explain it as you get there, though. So you have a pension plan with the town, and this is one of the big estimates that we had to accommodate for in the audit. And the estimated portion is what this chart in the middle of page 36 is talking about. So if we were to look at the governmental-wide statements, you're going to show a net pension asset of about $94,500, $94,450. That's a net pension asset. That net pension asset is based off a 7% rate of return for the investments in the fund. But as you can see, with a 1% decrease in investment return, you're going to drop down to a $95,000 net pension liability. But also, if you jump up to 8%, you got a $250,000 net pension asset. So we just like to point this out, that this is one of the significant estimates within the audit. Now, we didn't come up with these numbers. These are come up with through an actuary study by an outside organization. So we just report it, but we just like to make the board aware of that estimate that's within the audit, just to make sure you know exactly what that figure means. Clear as mud, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And then I'll go ahead and touch on a few budget items. So I'll go ahead and jump to page 40. And I usually just like to touch on the budget just to let the board kind of know where they sat as far as budget. You probably already know. But as far as 2021 was concerned, page 40 is the general fund. If you look under total revenues and to the far right column there, it looks like you were about 1 million over budget when you collected 1 million over budget as far as revenues. So really good. A lot of it came from taxes. You just had a killer year as far as taxes, about $645,000 over budget. And then operating grants and contributions was about $363,000 over. So those two items there were the main reason that you collected more than you anticipated as far as revenues in the general fund. And then on the bottom part where the expenditures, you were about 840 under budget for expenditures, so also very good. And most of that was in the general government, public works, and then some capital outlay that didn't happen during the year. So again, great year for the general fund, $1.8 million increase in net position or fund balance. And then on to the next page. Actually, I was going to skip that page. No, I was going to do that page. The Park Impact Fees Fund. That's your other major fund for governmental activities. Revenues a little bit under budget for what you expected, but then well under budget as well for capital expenditures. Overall, the fund increased by about $15,000. So still positive operations for that fund. Just the impact fees were a little lower than anticipated. And then now we'll go ahead and jump to page 49. And page 49, 50, and 51 are going to be your budgets for your enterprise funds. And so on page 49, we've got the water wastewater fund. As you can see, total revenues was about $732,000 over budget. Most of that, in fact, all of that pretty much came from the tap fees. Just sold a lot more taps than you anticipated, so that's a great thing. And then as far as expenditures is concerned, pretty much right on point with that. Only about $41,000 under budget on expenditures, and most of that was just in capital outlay, which kind of lines up to the under budget revenue for grants and contributions. So again, for that fund, about almost $400,000 increase in available resources. So another good operations for that fund. And then on the irrigation fund on the next page, revenues under budget about $17,000, mostly just grants there. And then on the expenditures over budget or under budget by about $45,000. And that's mostly just due to the fixed assets. So looks like you probably didn't get a grant, so you didn't buy some stuff in that fund. That fund was about $72,000 decrease in available resources, but overall, you still got a healthy amount of operational resources there. So, and then on the next page, we got the Silt Housing Authority, about $24,000 under on revenues. Mostly due to charges for services, and operations was under budget by about 38 as far as expenditures is concerned. Again, positive operations in Silt Housing Authority, about $47,000 increase in available resources. So I know I talked for a really long time and it was kind of maybe monotonous, but is there any questions on anything I discussed or anything that I didn't that somebody would like me to discuss?
Nope, great audit.
Yep. Another good year.
Yeah, it was a great year. you got great staff. They really do keep operations smooth there, and it's always a pleasure rolling into Silt when we do the audit, just because we know everything's going to be in line, and it's just going to be one of those easy trips. It's not one where we're pulling our hair out, which is good because I don't have much hair on my head, so I don't have any to pull out.
Don't jinx us, Brian.
I wouldn't dream of it. But
How many?
yeah, if there's no,
Oh.
go ahead.
I was just wondering, how many journal entries did we have to correct this year?
I'll have to go back and look. I should have printed those off and had those available. I don't think it was many.
Okay.
And most of them that we do make, I believe, are ones that the town necessarily wouldn't need to book anyways, because it's not for, it's more for the governmental wide statements, which the town does not maintain their books on a governmental wide statement basis. So a lot of the journal entries we don't expect the town to do.
Okay, that's just one of the things, when I first got on the board, we had pages and pages and pages of journal entries.
Right.
So our new treasurer does a much better job than past performances were.
Just for those that haven't had that discussion
Right.
before, can you give us an overview of exactly what you're talking about as far as journal entry, corrections, et cetera, so everybody's on the same page with that?
So I don't know
Maybe
if
Treasurer
Brian
Tucker
wants to.
can, so, but-
Yeah, our Treasurer
yeah.
Tucker, I am not an accountant.
Yeah.
So if Brian or Amy would like to touch on that subject just a little bit and explain what a journal entry correction is.
Yeah.
I can't speak for previous treasurers to know how many journal entries they have to do. I can only tell you what I've done since I've been here. It's not many. I can't tell you the exact amount. I don't know, 12 to 25, Brian, what do you think?
That's usually about right. I would think. I was trying to pull it up real quick. If you want to sit with me for just a second, I can pull up and tell you exactly how many we had.
Yeah, maybe.
But
So
generally-
Brian, while you do that, sorry I don't mean to interrupt, but this is going to make it easy for everybody. So Treasurer Tucker, if you don't mind, please tell us what the journal is, and please tell us what a journal entry is, so that we're all very clear on exactly what we're talking about.
So we have several journals.
Okay.
So we have like our cash journal, we have our, there's a cash receipting journal entry, there's cash receipting, there's utility billing, there's a CD1, CD2, our JE journal. Journal entries are things that, say we get a check for some hay that somebody purchased from Silt River Preserve.
Yep.
And they want to buy it from us. And we put it in the system as miscellaneous.
Okay.
But because I don't have a revenue line item at the front counter for the Conservation Trust Fund for someone to put into the system.
Yeah.
So at the end of the month, when I'm doing the financials, I make that journal entry to where it's coming out of miscellaneous revenue and it's going into Conservation Trust as a grant
Okay.
that, or miscellaneous income that is being received in the correct fund.
Yes. So that makes sense. So what Mayor Reichel is talking about as it relates to journal entries, right, are these like miscellaneous transactions involving money, right, that at the very beginning of it, there's not really a dedicated category for it, if that makes sense. So
Yeah, but there's also other journal entries that kind of things that we received in January that should have actually been in December of the previous year. So they're reversing entries. It's not all just things that were put into cash receipting. And some of the journal entries that Brian has me do at the end of the year is more like depreciation on equipment or land or like our capital assets and things like that. So there's different types of journal entries that are done on a monthly and yearly basis.
right. And if we can all just be sort of clear in what we're talking about, the reason that it's important
so-
to understand journal entries is clarity of money that belongs to the taxpayers to make sure that there's no goofiness happening, if that makes sense, right? I just think it's important to be clear on what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
Yes.
Right, so I've got that pulled up now, and it looks like we did 16 audit adjustments. But like I said, probably
We can't hear you, Brian.
75% of those are oh, sorry.
I think the last we got was 16 journal entries,
Yeah.
or audited journal entries.
Yeah.
That's all
Let's
we're
see.
getting.
Am I unmuted again?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I got muted. So we had 16, but I think about 75% of those were adjustments that we wouldn't necessarily expect the town to have on their books originally. So a lot of them are capital assets that you want to show in your expenses and revenues because you want to see that as far as budget is concerned. But then as the audit is completed, we move those onto the balance sheet to comply with GAAP for the audited financial statements. Like she mentioned, depreciation, it's another one that's not a budgeted expense, or just audit entries that are not going to necessarily be recorded throughout the year. In manner.
We don't know what you're saying.
Does that make sense?
No, it doesn't make sense. We can't hear you.
Yeah, you're cutting out, so we were losing you there again.
Yeah, I think we have a bad connection, Brian. You heard him mention GAAP. That's governmental approved accounting principles. So there's this.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Generally accepted.
Is that any better?
Thank you. Generally accepted.
Yeah,
Generally accepted.
so it wasn't no funny business, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, that was my point, is that
Yeah.
during the year, we're getting a very clear picture of our financials,
Right.
month to month when we get those, so we know what's truly going on. That's just, I like to make that point that, since the town's been positive, as far as cash flow and saving money and that the financials have been very clear about what's coming to us, so.
Good.
I think it's pretty clear.
I don't know if we still have Brian or not, but I don't know. If we've got anything else to add?
Are you, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Sorry, I'm having some technical difficulties. Yes, that is absolutely correct, GAAP. So it's things that you wouldn't necessarily need to know on a month-to-month basis. It's kind of things that should be recorded in the revenues and expenditures that at the end of the year, we move out to the balance sheet to comply with GAAP. So the financial statements that you get month to month are accurate as far as the ins and outs of revenues and expenditures.
Okay.
Okay.
Perfect.
Is there anything else to?
But if there's, no, I've got nothing else. So unless there's any other questions, I'll let you guys and gals get back to your meeting.
All right.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Yeah,
Thank
Brian.
you.
Thanks, Amy.
Good job, Amy.
Thank you.
You can stay.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. This is an action item, so we need to make a motion to accept or approve or accept the audit.
Yep. Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to accept the 2021 audit presented by Blair and Associates.
Second.
Okay. Motion by Mayor Pro Tem Not to accept the 2021 audit presented by Blair and Associates, seconded by Trustee Seifert. All's in favor?
Aye.
All's opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Do we have our applicant?
Mr. Lemon is joining us by Zoom tonight.
Okay.
So
good.
I believe he's on there.
Is that Whitney?
Whitney, yeah.
Okay, he is here.
Okay, perfect.
All right. Then we'll move back up the agenda real quick and hit the special use permit for Canyon Creek Custom Flooring, and I will turn this over to our Community Development Manager.
Alrighty. So Mr. Lemon, Whitney Lemon, is joining us by Zoom. He's the owner of Canyon Custom. Let me try that again. Canyon Creek Custom Flooring. and is proposing that units 6 and 7 be approved to allow operation and fabrication of high-end interiors. He's located over at 401 Main. He's one of the marble shops that just moved in. And the products that he produces are countertops, flooring, walls, accent pieces, shower interiors, vanities, sinks, and other similar products. After many discussions with Mr. Lindman, one of the bigger concerns that we had as staff was what is happening with the water that he's using. Are there chemical additives being added to our treatment plant? And he said that he uses something called a CNC machine to cut the stone, and there's no chemical additives that are added. The CNC machine runs at approximately 96 decibels, which Mr. Lindman stated is the equivalent of a motorcycle motor. So to navigate the noise, he said that it's not a lot of noise, but he's going to go on ahead and keep the bay doors closed and just keep the person doors open for airflow. The CNC machine dumps into a tank that is filtered through with gravity that separates the dust particles, and then it deposits it into a holding tank. It's a 2,000-gallon tank that's emptied every 3 to 4 months by a septic service, so none of the water is being put back into our septic. And it only gets filled every 3 to 4 months. So it's using less water than a typical tenant would use in that location. Mr. Lemon is confident that his business will bring more jobs to Silt and sales tax revenue, and they strive to serve the community with their products. This did go in front of the Planning and Zoning Commission on October 4th with a unanimous recommendation to approve the special use with the conditions noted by staff, which are all representations of the application made in writing with application materials and verbally at the Planning Commission or trustee meetings that are reflected in the meeting minutes are considered to be part of the application and binding on the applicant. All products that are being stored outdoors, including but not limited to the storage racks on the west side of the parking lot, be moved and fenced behind the building or in the southwest corner of the building. And you can see that in the application. I don't know if who's controlling is Sheila controlling the screen?
Yes, I am, Nicole. Where would you like me to go?
There, if you could go to the site plan, that would be wonderful. Mr.
It's around
Lemon,
page 30-ish or so, Sheila.
Thank you.
town staff wants to make sure that he's not impeding on any easements, setbacks, or right-of-way with the railroad there, so that's been discussed. Mr. Lemon has proposed that all new products being delivered will be relocated to the approved storage agreement that we'll see on the site plan on that southwest corner. He's going to fence in. You can kind of see that little box that he has drawn in there. As far as the existing slabs that are on that northwest corner, he is asking for time until about March 1st to get all of those fabricated and installed, because the more you move the slabs, the more likely it is that there's going to be damage to them. So he's asking to keep those existing slabs that have already been there in that location, and all new ones will go behind the fenced storage area. And then another condition would be permits are required to alter the property in any way, including adding the fence, hanging signs, and other various interior and exterior changes. And then the fourth condition would be that Mr. Lemon would provide any additional requested documents and pay any remaining fees to the town prior to the recordation of the special use permit. And Whitney, do you have anything to add?
Hi there.
Hello.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Sorry, there was some miscommunication. I meant to be there tonight, but there was some miscommunication. I thought it was on the 27th. Yeah, so what she said was true. I plan on doing all that stuff as soon as there's some concrete being poured on the south side of the building. It got delayed a little bit with the weather that rolled in. But once that's done, it needs a couple weeks to cure, and then I'm gonna start moving product over on that southwest corner.
I have a question. So, if this particular use in that building requires a special use permit to conduct business there, how and why has it already been in business there? Have they been operating there like when they shouldn't have been?
Yes, it was discovered when we were going through trying to make sure that everybody has their business license in the different areas. And the whole reason why the storage was such a big discussion is because that's what alerted us to the fact that there was a business operating there, because all of the slabs are like right up against Highway 6.
Right.
So then when we went and knocked on all doors to make sure that everybody in that building had their business license, it was discovered that we have 2 marble shops operating out of that location. One has been there for 3 years, and they'll be coming in front of the board at the next board meeting.
Okay.
And then Mr. Lemon just opened up his shop in August. Is that how long you've been there? About August?
Okay.
So,
Yeah, late August, yeah.
yeah. So once it was discovered what they were doing as far as fabricating is a special use in that location.
Gotcha.
So they're both going through the process now to see if they can be approved to operate that business at that location.
Okay. Yeah, gotcha. Here's my opinion. I'll share it with you guys, and we can have a discussion. I'm open to talking to you guys about them fabricating in that building. I am not in favor of the outside storage. So all the granite that's outside, all the slabs that are outside, I don't think that needs to happen. And as far as the temporary permanent fencing that they're talking about with the green screen in front of it, I'm not in favor of that either. I think it looks terrible, and it is not what I want to look at when I'm coming down Main Street into town. So that's my opinion. So if everything's contained within that unit, then I think I would be okay with it, as long as we have verification that they're not contaminating the water in any way and putting more stress on our wastewater plant. That was my thought when I read through this entire presentation. So that outside storage for me is a hard no. So
I'm fine with the outside storage as long as it's in the back of the building. You know, I don't care for it out front where you can see it, but if it's in the back of the building where everybody else in that building has their storage, then I'm fine with that.
And I'm kind of 100% the opposite. At the end of this building, we have a business with their product displayed all over the parking lot. I think driving through Silt and you see a marble shop, it might make you stop in town and see what products they have available. I think my biggest thing, and I'm going to speculate on this, is that the property owner of this building has been a nuisance to the town of Silt forever. Has done whatever he's wanted inside that building with no regards to what the rules of Silt are. And I think that when businesses come and talk to him, he's more than happy to rent them a space without telling him, if you're going to rent a space and run a business in Silt, I suggest that you go get a license to operate in here. So I actually, I feel sorry for some of the businesses in there. I know at the end of the day, it's this applicant's job to get the proper licensing. That's I'm sure when we showed up and said, hey, you need to have a business license, we're here in October. If this was August, evidently this applicant has got right on this to make things right. So that was my question, is why did P&Z want the inventory to be fenced?
I think it was more for, after talking with the applicant, it was more for like a security also, because they are big, heavy slabs, just to make sure that nobody's messing with them when there's not anybody there. But on that northwest corner where it's currently at, it's impeding the parking for the whole unit.
Okay.
So it can't stay there because that's designated parking spaces for everybody. But to move it back out of the parking spaces was more along the lines of the thought process to move the storage. And then just for safety and security, to make sure that nobody could mess with it, because it is heavy and expensive equipment, materials.
And storage is supposed to be screened by code, and the town tries not to make exceptions where it's okay for you, not okay for Joe or Whitney or whoever.
Right, and that's what I would argue in that building. It's not okay for this tenant, but there's another tenant with massive storage that's not screened.
Yeah, the whole building, you can't tell. It looks like someone got evicted and all their stuff's in the front lawn in one spot, and then the cars in the back. I mean, and I'm sure the marble, I mean, that would look nice and neat. I mean, you can't really, it'd be stacked and everything. So, I mean, I think there's bigger issues with that building that need addressed as well. And this applicant is actually coming and trying to make things right. And I can see the storage in the back, along the back. So there's still way to drive through in front of the storage is what's happening. Okay. Yeah.
I mean, I'm definitely.
I have had numerous local folks come by since we put out those slabs asking us about fabricating countertops for them in the town of Silt, which I'm trying to build up work in your town. So that's been a positive.
Well, and I want to thank you for hearing this case, because we were under the impression when we moved into the building that there wasn't a need for a special use. So we want to make it very clear that there was no intention at all to avoid the requirements of Silt. And I think you hit it on the nail on the head when you said that we moved into the building under the impression that we were following all expectations and have cleaned up the yard a lot and have made it really very visibly appealing from the street. I was out there picking up trash again the other day and watching the cement space being designated for the new pour. And then at that point in time, we hope to move all those slabs to the south side of the building so they wouldn't be seen by any of the traffic on 6 and 24. However, it's hard to block even the backside, south side. So we're just trying to stay in compliance, and we request any recommendations you would have for the materials of the fence as well, so that it builds the character of the downtown area. We care a lot about water as well. In addition, I think it's really important for you to know that we wouldn't be in this business if we were wasting water, and we wouldn't be in the business if we were dumping anything that was toxic into the wastewater, period. That's against our value system. So thank you very much for listening to our proposal.
So I have another question though. So like maybe one of you guys can clear this up for me. So like this use in that building needs a special use permit to run that business out of there, right? And we had some other folks in town over on the other side of town with the Paradise Event Center, where they went in there and they did some work to that building. They needed special permission to use that property like they wanted to, and we told them no, because it was against the code, right? It wasn't enough parking, wasn't the right use, it's not what that area is supposed to be for. That's not what this area is coded for. It's not for manufacturing, it's not for storing outside. So why do we tell one group of people no, but then we'll tell another group of people yes? Like, why are we not consistent on that within the town?
But we left the microbrewery, he's gonna be manufacturing beer.
He's in Rifle.
You moved to Rifle now?
Yeah, you
Yes.
have.
Yeah.
He's
Well,
grown
we
in
did
right.
approve them for there, though.
Yeah, we approved
Yes,
him for
yes,
there
we
with his
approved him
budget.
for there. Then there is issues with the owner of the building, and he's gone.
Right, but I'm saying, we did approve that, and that was gonna be manufacturing, so.
Was there a special use for his dining outdoors for that?
No.
There was?
For the food truck?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we gave them a special permit for that. I mean, yeah.
I mean, that building originally was a mobile home manufacturing
Yeah, it was originally for manufacturing.
building. I don't know, I don't know if, in my eyes, this business doesn't constitute manufacturing.
They're not really manufacturing the
Fabricating.
marble.
Yeah,
They're cutting it.
No, they're just
I mean,
Okay.
the difference between a guy cutting a 2x4 or cutting a
Building
piece
a
of
house and then tiny home and taking it out.
Okay, so I'm good with the use inside the building. I don't think storing all that marble and granite and stone outside, like, I don't think adding some green screen fencing out on that west side of that parking lot looks nice. I don't think people want to drive by and look at that every day. Like, I just don't.
Do you have a different
Have you seen
material in
the-
mind?
No,
Have you
like,
seen
put the
east
stuff
side?
inside.
Have you seen the east side of that building?
Yeah, I
Those
have.
guys
So
are
you want to
probably-
make the west side look like the east side?
No, I don't know. I don't know that.
I think the south
When-
side where they want to do storage is.
We were talking about putting it on the south side of the building. It's not gonna be where you can see it from 6 to 24 as you're driving down the road.
Right.
Well, I know, but you can still go around the building. I'm just saying, right? Like when it's outside storage. Like there's parts of town right now that are breaking town code with outside storage that need to be addressed. And I don't know that I want to add to that with everything there's a ton of stuff over there. A ton of it. So, I don't know. Move it inside. Store it somewhere else, bring it over here, do your fabrication, and go install it. I just don't want Silt to be, like, in town, on Main Street, a marble and granite storage facility outside. So, and those green screens on the fence, like,
Those
they
deteriorate,
get tears, they get holes, they start flopping in the wind, and I don't know, it just doesn't look good. So,
I think I'm trying to find a picture, but a more ornamental, heavy-duty, industrial-looking steel fence would look
yes.
nice around
You
there.
mean like what we put up in front of the shop? Something like
Yeah.
that?
But you can see through that.
Yeah,
How
you
about
can
a
see through it.
6-foot wood fence?
What's that?
6-foot wood fence.
I don't know.
The
Then it doesn't get stained. I don't know. Like it's not a storage area. It's a parking lot. Move the product inside, fabricate it inside. I'm good with it then. But like if we're gonna approve this, so you guys want to try to approve this with that outside storage, I'm a no. Like I drive by it every day. I don't like looking at it, and I don't want to keep looking at it. I think other people feel the same way. So
That's what I would envision.
yeah, that's an attractive fence there. Yeah.
yeah. So how much of that are we looking at of fencing? So they're gonna come off from. Let me look.
Just for clarity, are you stating from the west side, or are you saying, so that right now the concrete along the south side of the building is not visible from 6 and 24?
Yeah, so
are
I
you
think I'm
saying-
definitely more concerned about the north and the west side of the building where there's stone and granite and racks like all throughout that whole part. So-
Right, those are temporary until the concrete is completely poured.
Yeah, so you're looking
So
at,
alongside this west side of the building, coming out, going toward the railroad tracks would be where the fence you are recommending, right? Across the west side of the building
So be on the
toward the
back.
railroad track.
yeah, so that exterior slab storage on the site plan is approximately 90 by 25.
I see that. Is that
On the
25
south
or
side,
is that
right?
34?
Yeah, on the south side, yeah.
Yes, yeah, that's correct.
I think it says 34 feet.
34 is clear out to the end. It doesn't look like the storage is going quite that far.
Oh, I see where you're seeing the measurement.
I think, yeah, like I said, I
So
think
you're
it-
saying, okay, so you would take that type of fence and run it right off of the southwest corner of the building. And it runs directly south, 25 feet, and then it's gonna go
And it goes
east.
parallels the railroad tracks.
I wish, I don't know if I could,
Could you clarify that, please?
We were actually just discussing your site plan.
Okay.
That-
Are you
that-
able
that
to
you
share
have on
your
there.
screen, Mr. Mayor?
yeah, is there a way I can,
I mean, they are, trying to abide by the code, and yeah, they're probably, yeah, there was an error of them moving in before they, got everything taken care of, but at the same time, it appears they are trying to abide by the code, and they're trying to be a good neighbor, and they're trying to do, abide by the town's best interest.
All right,
so.
I don't mean to be cynical here, but can we please agree that the responsibility on this is the landlord and the tenant?
yes.
It's their responsibility. It's the landlord's responsibility to place a tenant that's gonna that's gonna have a business that is permitted by the code of the town, and if not, they need to come to the town and ask permission first, and have this discussion before it's ever open. Because what they're proposing now is even if we approve that and we put the fence up, they want to wait until March to move their product because of weather and because of that slab.
Right.
And actually, the current slabs that are placed out in front, as they're used up, they will decrease. And so new slabs that would come in would be on the south side. So the only slabs that would be on the west side are those that are currently being used and will be decreasing rapidly.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
are you planning to share your screen?
I wanted to, but I'm not logged into the Zoom, so,
Right. I was going to tell you would need to do that. I can send you an email link if you have access to email on that laptop to where you wanted to
it's on the,
share your screen. I could certainly do that.
It's on the website too.
I'm not the technical person, so.
It is, if you could do www.townofsilt.org, there is a link on that as well if you didn't want to have to try to log into your email.
Okay.
I mean, yes, I do agree with Pro Tem, not that, yeah, all of this should have been done before they moved in. I mean, I'm not disputing that at all.
I agree with that too. However, we are trying as a board to, I guess, not take care of it, like, make it easier for these people coming to their town and establishing businesses to succeed. We've all agreed on that. So I don't know.
And I, as soon as I found out that I needed this special use permit, I agree that I should have done some more research on that. But the moment I realized that I needed that, I went and saw Nicole and explained to her the situation. We've put, every red cent that we have into this company. And so, I've been ticketed for it and I'm going to be paying fines for being open until this gets resolved. This is basically our family's financial well-being to keep this company open. I really do want to stay in Silt. So anything we can do to make that happen is I'm willing to do. I know it was mentioned about moving the storage into the facility, and that's not viable just because we have CNC machines inside there take up quite a bit of room. There's just not enough room to store the slabs inside. Maybe if I could get another unit, that would be possible, but right now that's not an option. But maybe in the future, but I think we can store them on the southwest corner of that, and the majority of them would be on the south side. So that would be not visible from 6 and 24.
So my consideration would potentially be, like, this fencing needs to be permanent, right? Like, it can't be temporary fence. I think what you pulled up seems fairly reasonable, but this is just me talking, like, you guys don't have to agree with this, but, like, it has to just come off of the southwest corner of that building.
Right.
And just go directly south, and then come across, like you said, run parallel to the building. So literally all of their stone storage is on the south side of that building. none of it on the west side.
Reasonable.
And then, so this probably with the guy on the south side or the east side is gonna follow suit probably and try to come and do the same thing because he has a slab cut in place too
Well, with his,
by
with,
CXR or whatever.
yeah. So here's another question that I have, and I don't know if this is even feasible, but like, is there ever a possibility that Front Street continues to the west behind this building?
No.
No.
It's railroad right away.
So there's no way that's ever come in across this way.
Nope,
No, there isn't.
there's no
The
space.
railroad right away
Yeah.
gets wider. Yep.
Here, there,
Oh, yeah,
Yes.
up
Yeah.
into here.
There's literally no space.
Yeah, Front Street is always
there.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at right
Yeah.
now.
So, question, what would be your time frame on the west side? How long do you think before that stuff will be gone? We talking May or March, February? I mean, how fast are you gonna go through?
The latest would be March. That's when we have some jobs that are out that far.
Okay,
But we believe we can try to get it done sooner. But right now, our
This thing.
deadline date would be March.
okay.
What's this thing right here? What is this? You know? Is that there?
No, that's this here.
So what is this? Do you guys know?
I mean, look.
Sorry, right here on this. What is this?
Oh, this gets a hand and everything.
On your site plan, you've got 9 little blue, 3, 6, 7, 8 little kind of bluish green dots on the southwest corner. What is that?
That would be part of the temporary storage on that's on the southwest corner.
Yeah, on the southwest
Yeah,
corner.
it joins to the exterior
Okay,
slab.
Is that current storage or is that proposed storage?
That's current.
So that would go away when the new larger,
That's-
to
okay,
to your
okay.
point, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah.
Keep it on the south side, end to end on the building itself, no extensions beyond the structure.
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
Off the corner to the south, whatever that is, 25 feet, and then at 90 feet to the east, right, and then back.
The same width as the
Yeah,
building
so what's
itself.
in orange is permanent.
Yep.
Correct?
Yeah, and if we can just be clear about this, like this is actually like this whole freaking thing right now, because this whole thing is full of stone out there.
Yeah.
It's not just that little corner.
Let me see if I can bring that up. Okay. Amy's gonna see if she can get this fence picture to load. 'Cause-
Oh, she's gonna load it on her
Yeah,
computer.
because the Zoom meeting doesn't like me.
To me, one of the main issues we're discussing, and I think it ties into what you all have said, is it's about compliance, right? But there are two different vectors of compliance right now. We've got fairly new tenants who, and I'm projecting this perhaps, maybe they were misled. Maybe they were told certain realities existed that in fact did not. As soon as they became aware, they're acting quickly to correct them. So I think in terms of compliance, they are meeting that standard. This other party that's in the same building for 3 years, I think when they come before this group, there's going to be a little more hostility, and that's the way it should be, because clearly they're asleep at the wheel. So I think if we have a compliance issue sort of at scale with this building in this space, we should be going to the landlord and
100%.
saying, whatever you think your grand plan is, the gig is up. We're going to raise the bar on you. But my point is, I don't necessarily know that we should be holding this particular tenant responsible for the landlord's crimes, so to speak.
I don't think we are. We're not. I don't look at it that way. I can separate those two things. Really, like,
And they are.
we're black and white here. We're talking about what's allowed by use by right there, and what's not. That's it. That's all we're talking about. So this use is not allowed there without a special use permit, which means that we have to agree that we're okay with that use there, regardless of how they got there.
I wonder how many special use permits we grant in a year,
A few.
or ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? But the number's never zero.
No, I don't think so.
Right? And why do we think that is? Is it because organizations are changing over time? Is it that the P&Z codes are essentially etched in stone? No pun intended. But the business environment is shifting, right? So special use permits exist for those statistical outliers, those exception cases that come along. So the question is, does this particular business meet that standard?
That's what we're debating.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's your opinion, Mayor Pro Tem, that they do not meet that standard?
I think to a certain degree, in my opinion, no. And it centers around that outside storage. You know, and my basis on that is just where that building is located, right?
It's aesthetic.
Well, of course it's aesthetic, yeah. I mean, that's our main street, you know, and that's, it's visible to everybody driving through town, if that makes sense.
Even on the south side.
Well, so that, if you can understand this, I'm somewhat open to the south side storage idea with, I think, some permanent fencing that looks like it would belong there, and I'm definitely not in favor of some chain link, temporary type fence, even if that's permanent chain link with that green mesh. I just think that would look terrible. So what the mayor pulled up, I think would look nice. I think that it would actually protect their material a little bit better and could work.
I think the only one thing I would really, I have no really question or quarrels about it, but I would definitely want to see a date set where the outside is going on the west side. I mean, I'd want to see a date, a specific date, whether, I don't care when it is, but this is the date that west side stuff has to be gone. I mean, that's one thing I'd want to see.
Makes sense.
Some kind of a date set, so it doesn't
Seems
drag
reasonable,
on,
right.
you know, well, oh gee, we got some more in, we moved some more here.
I think
it's gonna be April, then it's gonna be May.
That's compliance directed forward,
Right.
right? That's making sure that there are fewer enforcement actions required by saying
And
you're
like you said, if
agreeing.
he says it's decreasing, that's fine. I don't want all of a sudden another 5 semis come in and get bigger and bigger.
I mean, my only concern is if we have a late winter and in March you still have a ton of snow and ice, I mean,
But he's-
then you have the risk of trying to move slabs on snow and ice.
Well,
Well, he's got I mean,
but that south side doesn't
That's
get
how you
much
run a
snow.
lot of
That's-
businesses.
No.
There's hardly any
Well,
snow
I
in
meant
that.
the
Colorado.
existing stuff.
You know, the existing stuff, that, he's gonna be using it every day
Yeah.
inside, so, and that gets so much sun there that it doesn't really,
No, the south side will stay.
yeah. But even that west side gets a lot of sun. So that would be my only
That's true.
concern.
the Zoom app.
Jerry, in staff recommendation, part of the conditions was, it's stated March 1st would be the
That's
date
right.
that was in there.
That's not good.
Yeah, right there, March 1st.
And so, at which point?
Yeah. Well, it says he estimates that all
Estimates, yeah,
exists.
it says
so
estimate.
instead
I'd
of
like to see it in
estimated,
stone,
yeah.
you know, where,
It should say,
That makes
yeah.
sense.
yeah, I wanna see it, this would be the last, you know,
Yeah.
a date set.
I would agree with.
Well,
Trustee
just all
Seifert
outside
on
storage
that.
be moved into the enclosed area by March 1st.
And we've got the
Because if
applicant
nothing
right here.
else,
Let's
then he
ask
can
him.
move it in the exterior slab. I mean, if there is some, if we have to move it.
That's what I'm saying, it has to be moved into that enclosed
in
space,
that
whatever.
enclosure, but that's.
They're working on
That'd
that.
be my only concern is the set date.
Yeah,
Change the wording on that. So,
yeah.
I agree with the mayor pro tem. I think if they keep it on the south side, if it's stuck to, if it's restricted to the length of the building and only comes out whatever it is, 25 feet, 28, depending on setbacks and whatnot.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I don't want to see it off of Main Street, but I think that adequately hides it. I haven't seen the mayor's
We're getting,
unicorn fencing yet, but provided that looks great, it could actually be a brand builder for these folks because it may separate them from the herd in terms of the space that they can show people stuff in. So it may be advantageous to them as a business. I think it's a happy medium.
Perhaps.
And it helps them stay compliant. Again, I appreciate the fact that they're coming to us right away. Whether or not they were supposed to come to us 2 months ago, I can't solve for.
Right.
But clearly, they're making an honest effort to get this rectified quickly and paying associated fines and whatnot.
So are the
Yeah.
fines being tallied retroactive to when they first opened their business?
Yeah.
Yes.
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 Yeah.
Okay.
And one of you goes down there weekly and holds your hand out. How does that work?
No, it's, their fines, they'll go back in front of the judge as soon as there's a decision made on the special use to determine what the final fines will end up being.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And both marble shops are going through the same process. They both got summoned into court.
Any other businesses get summoned?
All the other businesses there are an allowed use. Those are the only two that were not.
Yeah, the
Fencing
business
right
at
there,
Fifth and
fencing
Main's
right
been
there.
summons, but they continually refuse to abide by much anything. You know, so at least these people are doing their best to comply.
As soon as they were both notified, they were both in here the next day.
Yeah.
So that,
Yeah, Whitney called me the day that he found out about this, and I wasn't available, and within a half hour, he had already contacted Nicole. So they did try to do things as quickly as possible.
Now, this is different than the one on the east end?
Yes.
yeah.
It is.
It's different, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where'd the picture go?
Mark started talking. There it is
Oh,
again.
there it is.
Okay. It's back up.
Now, can the applicant see that as well?
Yes.
Yes, we can see
Yes.
it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I agree that we need more than a chain link fence with green fabric.
Totally agree. Those fences get tattered very quickly. Look at the wind this past weekend. I mean, that would have torn it to shreds.
I like what you brought up. I think it looks very nice and sturdy. And I was under the impression that the other green fence was actually metal, so we apologize on that. I also wanted it noted that the B2 Highway Business District and the comprehensive plan, we were hoping that we were in compliance with that and contributing to the downtown area of Silt, and all that we can do to make it a continually viable space. So the B2 Highway Business District was what we were using as our in our application, and the comprehensive plan, of course.
I still think it's the right business in the right spot if we can make the outdoor storage look attractive.
Agreed. This is actually a good case of when compliance works, right? Applicant comes hat in hand, we screwed up, we're trying to make it right. We give them an opportunity, ask them to make some modifications. This works for me.
Okay. I'll get behind it with that, or something very similar to that. The way that we talked about it. off
And
that
Jerry's
corner.
point about the hard date too, I think that's
What's that hard date?
March 3rd,
March
March
1st.
March 1st, that gets,
all the, everything's in
All outside
storage.
storage would have to be in the enclosed space by March 1st.
It's 5 months. That's a whole half a year. January 1st.
supply chain issues, contractor issues, there are too many
Well,
variables at
when's
play.
this concrete gonna be done?
I don't know.
We don't know. It's been pushed back a couple, at least another week with the weather that came in. So they were gonna pour next week. Now they're thinking another week out. And then it needs a cure for, I think, 3 weeks. I'm not positive because with the weight that's going to be sitting on it.
Sitting on it, which is the end of November.
Yeah.
February.
The last week of December, nothing's happening in the Christian world. Again, I'm just saying we need to set reasonable expectations. If March 1st is too long, then do we go to February? Is there a happy medium here to try and get this over the finish line?
I'm fine with March 1st.
Yeah.
I am as well.
I am too. Well, by
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
So is this this is not an action item?
This is a public hearing. It's a special use permit, so if the applicant doesn't have anything else they'd like to add, then we'll open up the public hearing and do that portion of it, and then come back to the board for a vote.
No, we're good. Thank you.
Okay. The time is now 8:13 p.m. and I will open up the public hearing in regards to the special use permit for Canyon Creek Custom Flooring. Persons desiring to make a public comment on this agenda item, please activate the raised hand function in the meeting program. Or do we have any emails or phone calls in regards to this agenda item?
No, I did not.
Okay.
I do not show any raised hands, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Would anybody in the chambers with us like to make a public comment on this agenda item? Okay. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and open up to further discussion by the board or a motion?
So I will not be making the motion here, but I will only vote yes on a motion if the language is proper about where that storage fence is gonna go, that it's only on the south side, off of that southwest corner of the building. It needs to be a permanent fence. I don't know how we word it to where it's something similar to what we showed here. For the record, your picture that was
With a
shared.
gate on it, right?
Well, it's gonna have to be gated, so like.
Well, yeah, it'd have to be
access.
gated anyway.
Yeah. So south side, permanent.
Wait. Excuse me,
Yes.
did you, for clarification, did you say the west side and then the south side is accessible so that we can get the forklift in on the south side? So the west side is fully in compliance with your requirements. In fact, planning and zoning said that it needed to be additional up to 6 feet, is that correct? So that even though the 4 feet was the required compliance, I think they knocked it up to 6 feet so it would cover the slabs.
Oh yeah, they're
So
talking about
you
the
probably
height.
want
height,
to
yes.
include that.
I would have just
would
assumed that they
get-
would put their gate facing west.
That would make sense.
That makes sense. You know what I mean? They just drive in,
Yeah.
right off
Except I,
backside of that building.
So the fence has to be parallel to the building, and not stick out west of the building line.
That's correct.
Okay.
Or east.
Yeah,
Well, we can't go east, they don't,
Well,
they
you
don't
can't-
bring
yeah,
that
you
much
didn't.
space.
yeah, they just.
So it'll go, if you think of the southwest corner, off that corner, it'll go however far. It was estimated, maybe 25 feet south.
34, wasn't it?
30.
Yeah, whatever it was
Uh-huh.
there.
30.
I would imagine the gate would be there so they can drive in and out. And then it would run parallel with the building to the east, right along the railroad tracks, and then hook back in to wherever that unit would be. So, yeah.
I think that's where you might have a confusion between the board and the applicant is, I think the board wants to see a 3-sided fence at that location. So
Oh, that's correct.
south, east, and then back north the building. I think the applicant maybe only wants to have 2 wing fences so they have full access
Oh, to the south,
to
you
the
mean?
south. Because the way the
I
slabs
see
will be
what you
set
mean.
in there, that they won't be able to bury, a slab 90 feet deep, have to move all their inventory to get to that last slab. So that's,
So you're saying they weren't
They
going to
just-
build
yeah.
it this way?
this way
It was going to go here
It's just these
and then
2
there?
wings, yeah.
It looks like it's a 34 by 90.
I understand.
That's the storage, but the
Yeah.
fence, the
That's probably
fence, they're
okay then,
talking
yeah.
just having the 2 ends.
Oh, just
And
the
having
2
this
ends.
open
It's
so
gonna
they
butt
can
up
just
to
drive
the
in, have
building.
their slab stored.
I
So
know
they don't
what-
have to
I know what
drive
he's
90
talking
feet
about.
down
Yeah,
to
it's
get a
basically
slab.
just
to
2
this
wings,
end.
not a hole enclosed.
Right,
Because otherwise, yeah, you'd have,
butted up to the building.
Yeah, you won't
The
be
red
able to
line
get the
shouldn't be there.
forklift turned around.
Yeah.
And
I see
The
what you're saying.
southernmost red line, because there's not going to be a
Oh, yeah,
fence
then
there.
you won't see any, yeah. That'd be even nicer than I thought. I thought it was gonna be offset towards the railroad,
Oh,
and
no.
you'd see the whole fence, but this is right on the building.
Right
so
on the
all
building,
you
right,
see-
right off the
You
corner of
won't
the
even know
building.
that it's storage, you'll just see
230
like a
foot.
nice.
That's the
30-foot
point.
section of the fence coming
Right.
south from the building.
yeah.
two
That works.
34-foot fences out, and then that way they can,
Fine.
Have access from the south.
Yeah.
So how do we phrase that?
I'm not taking notes, I hope you're taking notes.
I don't know if I can, so I'm trying to share my screen again. Which I am, I think.
All right, so how would you do that, right? It would come from here out to like what,
Yeah.
right here?
So. Where's my,
yeah, it'd come about, well, that's a 24-foot there, so it'd only be out about another 10 feet in the middle
So
of it.
then they would just access it around this way?
Yeah, that road goes around in there, that's how, so.
Okay.
So in theory, I don't know if you can see my mouse cursor on the screen. The fence is going to just extend from the building south along this plane.
Yep.
There technically will be no fence actually where this red line is at. That'll be open. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yep.
Okay. So yeah, we'd have a fence on the east side extending out from the building and a fence on the west side extending out, but nothing along the south
Correct. Because we need to get our forklift in to get our
to
slabs.
get the slabs that are
Yeah.
set here. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
It's fine.
I think that'll, I mean, that, a nice looking metal fence that comes
Yep.
off of those 2 sides blocks it from the east and the west when you're coming down Highway 6.
Is that impeding any traffic going through the back there?
No, there's still a whole access or in between a road on the other, between that and railroad tracks.
Right.
Yeah. And there's no, I mean, the public can drive through there, but it's not technically a road.
It's not a road, it's parking or whatever for that area.
Part of there.
And there's another, I don't know, 200 feet of building on the east side of that. You can't see that east or the east side of that fence at all.
At all, yeah. So
From anywhere. I'll be happy to put it there, but you can't see that from the road from anywhere.
right. So that's the other thing. Do we only want it on the west side?
No, I think you should put it on the east side too, because I do think that you can see over there from like the corner of 5th and Front Street. You can look down the whole
You can
back
look
side
down the
of
whole
that.
backside of that if you come down, and there is Front Street down there. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, it may also benefit them just for the future if another tenant's on that area, so it affects their stuff.
Sure. I'm okay with that.
Okay. So I would refer to those as wing fences extending no more than. Are you guys looking for 30 feet there?
Yeah, like 30 feet, 34 feet, something like that, whatever that.
Okay. So
Yep.
Up to 34 feet from the building on the east and west end of their. It looks like it lines up with their unit. 6
We would probably do, 20 some odd feet, because then it gives us room to get our forklift in through there and then to pick up because I think 34 feet is all concrete and then it drops off the dirt. So it'd be nice if we could just go 20 feet out and then have the forklift go on that concrete, pick up our slabs and come back out and just stay on concrete.
Yeah, I was thinking about wording it as maximum of 34 feet.
Okay.
Or do we just want to do the 20 feet, 25 feet? I mean.
Well, we
If
can
you
say
of
maximum,
34
and that
feet,
way
could
they
build
can.
at 5 feet.
Right.
Well,
I'm gonna put a minimum on it too.
yeah, I just
You
good
read my
idea.
mind. Yep.
So minimum 20?
It just needs to be able to block
Right.
everything.
Yeah.
So whatever that number is, 20, 25 feet.
I think 20 feet would block, most slabs are 10 feet in depth, so you're not going to see that. So that's doubling that.
Okay. So minimum 20 feet.
Okay.
Okay.
6 feet high. Do we all agree that decorative metal, solid decorative metal, meets a description?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, it should be fine.
yeah, solid decorative, yeah.
Permanent?
Yep.
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 Solid.
Would you mind sending us that link? Or adding it to the,
Yes, I will try and,
I believe there's also a way we can like kind of add that into the record as it was
Yeah.
shown on the Zoom.
in the Zoom, yeah. Okay. Did someone get all that to make a motion?
I'll give it a try. All right, I'll just borrow that. I move to approve the special use permit for Canyon Creek Custom Flooring to operate a stone fabrication business at 401 Main Street in Units 6 and 7, located in the B2 Commercial Zone District, with the staff recommended conditions and with a decorative metal with decorative metal fencing, wing fencing, with the minimum on the south side of the building that will not cross on the south side of the building that will not cross on the west of the western plane of the building. On the south side, 2 decorative wing fences that are 6 foot high and with a minimum of 20 feet and a maximum of 34 feet, and with the deadline of March 1st to move all slabs within the storage unit or the storage area.
Second.
Okay.
Yeah,
I think we got it. I'm gonna condense that a little bit, so if I say it wrong, then,
No,
then
yeah.
point of order, please. So, Trustee Clausen made a motion to approve the special use permit for Canyon Creek Custom Flooring at, I don't remember the address, and I'm on the wrong page.
On page 4.
At 401 Main Street in units number 6 and 7, with all the recommended planning and zoning. Trying to get there again. Planning and zoning recommendations, along with 2 wing fences, 6 feet high, minimum 20 feet long, maximum 34 feet long, of solid decorative metal permanent fencing extending from the south side of the building directly south. And then all outdoor storage to be moved in the enclosed storage space by March 1st,
Better.
2023. That motion was seconded by Trustee Hanrahan. All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All is opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, thank you guys.
so
Yes.
much,
you,
Mr.
guys.
Mayor, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you.
Council.
Have a great evening.
All right, thank you.
Scroll back through the packet here and get to the next agenda item. All right, the next item on the agenda is the Garfield Clean Energy Cooperative Presentation and Update.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. We've got Heidi and Christina here tonight. If you guys want to step over here and sit at this table if you like. They're here to present a membership and funding request for 2023, and also talk a little bit about GEC's results from last year and what their scope of work is going to be for 2023. So take it away, ladies.
Hi, hello, thank you for having us tonight. I am Christina Matzel, and I'm here with Heidi McCullough. We work for CLEAR, and CLEAR is our nonprofit that facilitates Garfield Clean Energy, which is a 9-member I'm losing my words. I mean,
CLEAR's a nonprofit. It's clean energy economy for the region. We're Carbondale-based nonprofit consultancy that administers the Garfield Clean Energy Program. So we work for CLEAR, but I personally spend 90% of my time working on Garfield Clean Energy programs. So these are the energy efficiency programs to support all of Garfield County, and funded by the 9-member jurisdictions, including RAFTA and CMC and Holy Cross, in addition to the jurisdictions.
and just a little history, Garfield Clean Energy was established as an advisory board under the county in 2009, and then through a DOLA grant was then established as a countywide collaborative in 2012. And if you can go to the next slide. The mission statement for Garfield Clean Energy is to provide energy efficiency solutions, alternative and renewable energy opportunities, advance clean transportation options and energy education to individuals and organizations in order to protect the environment and build a stronger, more resilient economy benefiting the residents of Garfield County. Next slide, please. Our key focus areas of GCE is energy efficiency, locally produced clean energy, clean mobility, and we have an emphasis on economic benefits, economic diversification, and building local knowledge and skills. So this presentation, we are going to update you on the cumulative results to date, which are summarized in the brochure I handed out about Garfield Clean Energy. We'll go over our Re-Energize Garfield County program, some design assistance and technical support for energy efficiency that we have facilitated, the energy tracking and active energy management for town-owned facilities program, some transportation and mobility updates, as well as the Garfield Clean Energy Action Plan update, and then some highlights for 2023 with your input. For the Reenergize program, this is a program that we received grant funding for to help low to middle income families, households throughout the county. We take an application that works with Northwest Colorado Council of Governments who facilitates the CARE and WAP programs at the state and federal level for low-income weatherization assistance. And so for Silt, we have performed 26 upgrades, and the grant funded $150,000 for the whole county, and so those have been about $12,000 for homes in Silt.
I should clarify that when it lists upgrades on that slide, we're talking about individual measures that have been completed. So one homeowner may have had multiple different elements of their home worked on, so that those aren't individual homes. That's different projects represented. And while the $153,000 came from Garfield Clean Energy, from Garfield County, what's really amazing about this program and what's gotten us, when we go to conferences and talk to people that do the work that we do statewide, everybody is super impressed by the fact that the vast majority of the people who participated in this program were already eligible for completely free services based on their income, but they didn't know it. So overall, about $500,000 worth of rebates and incentives have been placed. Not all of it, not all the projects have been done, so the money hasn't all reached the homeowners. But that funding has been committed, and that's because in our outreach to reach low to moderate income people in Garfield County, we learned that many of them were eligible for the truly low income programs that were out there that were completely free. So the money went much farther for the homeowners.
Maybe you answered this and I just didn't catch it, but it's like out of the 166 total upgrades, you said like those are individual upgrades. Like, what's the most common like upgrade out of all those? Like, what are we talking about?
Air sealing and insulation was the most common.
Okay.
So thermal envelope measures on the buildings themselves,
Okay.
rather than mechanical improvements.
Yeah.
It could be things as simple as lighting.
Weather
but-
stripping and
Weather
door
stripping.
sweeps and stuff?
Yes.
Okay.
Air sealing insulation would be a lot of blown attics.
Okay.
A lot of added insulation there.
Yeah, bad insulation. I don't know if this includes, I think this includes mobile home work, which
Yes,
Northwest
they've done some
specializes
mobile
in.
homework, so skirting insulation and,
cool, okay.
and sealing.
Bellies,
Mm-hmm.
that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's a really amazing program. That's.
Do you
really
know out of
benefited
those
everyone.
26 upgrades in Silt, like how many homes that was or no?
I believe it's 12 homes
Okay.
For the program. I'm spacing right now if that's just the Reenergize or a combination of the CARE and WAP
Got it,
programs
okay.
as
That would
well.
probably include all of the measures that were done
might
in
be.
Silt, regardless of who paid for it. But
Okay.
that exciting piece was that we had this certain amount of money from the county, and we were able to get far more work done on homes.
And are all the programs that we're talking about here, like, are they all like targeted at low income homeowners?
No, not every.
Not.
This program specifically is,
This
but the
one
other
is.
programs we'll talk about in the presentation are
For anybody?
anybody.
Got it,
Yeah,
okay.
But it's important to
there's-
mention, what the phrase that we're using in our industry now is low to moderate income, because there's a massive gap between people that can afford to do whatever they want to their homes and people that qualify for a lot of low income programs. So the moderate incomes actually exceed 100% of the area median income.
Maybe,
So I think
maybe it's in here, but so, okay, so low to moderate income, what is that?
to 120% of the area median income.
Got it, okay.
Per household. And next year for 2023, I think we're going to be able to go to 150%.
I believe.
And then
so.
you guys used like the most recent census data to get that?
Yeah, there's
It's information from the state.
a standardized AMI. You can look up
Yeah.
the area median income for any geographic region.
And that's updated annually?
I think I know that it
Yeah.
is. We get it from the state energy
We
office.
do get it from the state, and they
all
updated
the-
it mid-year this
yeah.
year even for us, so.
And that isn't specific to energy efficiency work. That number gets used for programs that serve like social services. That same income level breakdown gets
Got it.
used for youth zone or lift up.
Cool.
Oh, so this is my, I guess this is my question. The design assistance, my role with Garfield Clean Energy is that I'm the building specialist, and my background is building science, and mostly I help people design and build more energy efficient homes or help them update existing structures to be more energy efficient. So we're focused heavily on reducing carbon emissions and fossil fuel usage in buildings locally. Some of the ongoing projects that I've been working on this year, I've worked with Habitat for Humanity for a long time, and in coming to Garfield County, I've now established a relationship with the chapter here that is currently building an affordable net zero multifamily community in Rifle. They've broken ground and they're doing foundation work right now for that. And I did all the energy consulting and energy modeling in conjunction with the project manager and the architects. That project, we are looking forward to the project that they are starting in Glenwood Springs, and then hopefully another project in Carbondale that hasn't yet been exactly planned. We're trying to support Eco Dwelling, which is a business that maybe some of you guys might be familiar with. It's kind of right on the edge of Rifle and Silt. They're out off Powerline Road, I think it is, and they have a pretty innovative building system that they use to quickly crank out very affordable, pretty efficient homes. And I highly recommend, if you're ever curious and see their gate open, go over there and poke your head in one of those models. They've got at least 4 model homes there, but we're supporting them on meeting code and earning rebates and all the tax credits that they'll be available for, given these are relatively high performance structures. So we'll offer them support on that, and we have already supported them on that. Youth Zone, I've spent about the last year consulting with Youth Zone on a building electrification project of the old Glenwood Springs Library, which is now their primary office, which is served by an absolute hodgepodge of old commercial heating and cooling equipment that was, fairly low end to begin with. And they are going to be using some pretty innovative equipment there. And we've gotten some engineering consulting for them and found other funding as well. In Glenwood Springs, we worked with the city on the community center and the new city arts center there to do some small retrofits, and worked with Black Hills Energy to maximize all of the rebates that they could get for gas savings in those buildings. It was all a bunch of small measures that really added up to a lot of savings. The Garfield County Airport Hangar project is a new one. It's a new construction project. Private business owner starting what I think I would describe as sort of a concierge hangar service that's going to be built there, and they were open to consultation for some fairly innovative heating equipment there. They haven't installed this stuff yet, so we'll see if that gets installed. And then the last note about welcoming other projects. I've communicated with Trey and with Amy a little bit about some of the things that we've tried to support the town of Silton in the past with the town itself. And we're going to talk here a little bit about our energy monitoring platform and the new energy monitoring system that we've set up. That may be a way for us to continue to look into some of the energy usage that's gone on around your water treatment facilities. I know that we did a lot of work with you guys in the past, trying to help understand how costs went up even after solar went in. We're still available to look at that further now that we've got a better image of, we've just recently summarized all of your utility bills for all of your accounts and aggregated them all into one tool, which you're seeing right here. So we can support the town of Silt in their town-owned buildings, but also are here to support businesses or developers, specifically multifamily projects that are coming in. There's a lot of rebate money, a lot of tax credit money for energy efficient building that we can help people get access to. And then we can also just connect them with good engineering for energy efficient design. think a lot of us are pretty aware of how much fuel prices have changed for heating fuels. I just summarized today, I did some analysis of utility trends in Garfield County and noticed that Black Hills Energy, specifically, their rates have gone up over 400% in the last 2 years. That's a real number. So we're trying to help folks find ways to save money however they can in their buildings.
So then the slides you see here, we have, sorry if you go back to the previous slide. This is our new Energy Cap program. We have been running the Building Energy Navigator, and we've worked with Amy and with Trey to get in and look at you've got some meters tracking 15-minute interval data at the wastewater treatment plant, water treatment plant in here at the town hall. But then we're also we've updated all of the billing information. So we're able to get a really good snapshot at the last few years for the town buildings and what your usage numbers and cost numbers are. So that line chart at the bottom is the costs fluctuation over the last 3 years. And then we have a dashboard at the top that just gives a basic snapshot of your use. So this is really, this tool is, I think, a part of why Silt is a member in Garfield Clean Energy, so that we can help you guys be able to save money on your energy use and save energy use.
So how do we use that data to save energy? Like, it's showing us what we're using, but how do we use that to save energy?
So these are just screenshots out of the tool that you guys, anyone who is interested in getting access to, soon will be reaching out if anybody wants a training to figure out how to use the tool. Examples of how, so in the past, I've mostly been the one that uses Energy Navigator, and as long as I've worked at Clear, I go through on a regular basis, review all of the jurisdictions' energy usage patterns. I'm looking more at the live data to see where you have peaks and demands. I worked with Amy. One example was I used Energy Navigator, because this is new, that's our old tool, to look for any buildings that have peak demand that falls outside of the category where Xcel Energy would be charging you for demands. I found through all of the Garfield County partners that participated and that worked with me on this, I think I found something like 14 or 15 accounts that were eligible for a rate change. Some of them as much as 80% in estimated savings in their dollar amount. Now, 80%
Of their total bill, or of
Yes,
like that one moment of peak demand?
of their total bill ongoing, because we
Okay.
changed their rate structure. I can't tell you how big their bills were because I don't know how much dollar savings that out to. But I can tell you that average, it turned out to be about 30% in average savings on all those electric accounts. And all I was doing was looking at the peak demand and figuring out which ones fell outside of the demand charges for the Xcel rate structure. So there's that. I also can identify.
Why don't I understand that? Like, if it falls outside of that peak demand, like, why are they charging you
It's
peak
a
demand?
loophole. It was extremely frustrating. Xcel changed their.
Sorry, I don't mean to get in the weeds. We're way behind anyway, but
And I'm
like,
prone to that too, so I'll keep it brief. But
Okay.
Xcel Energy changed their rate structure, but the customer has to reach out to find out if they're eligible for it. If you as an individual or you as a jurisdiction never reach out to them and ask to see if you could change your accounts, they are never going to change them.
So would you guys ever consider doing like some sort of a mailer to everybody in Silt saying, hey, call Xcel because you might be eligible
So
for a
it's
rate
only
change?
for commercial customers, but we
Oh,
did
okay.
to all of the Garfield Clean Energy partners. We put it in newspapers. We did press releases.
Okay.
I emailed probably several of you in the room, but you may not remember. But Trey and I communicated about it. Amy and I communicated about it. So I emailed all of the Garfield County, the towns and jurisdictions in Garfield County, and we did a lot of outreach because Xcel
Yeah.
didn't. So that, and then just one other quick example of saving energy. The Carbondale Rec Center, I happened to notice their demand. They were having these peaks at times when the building was unoccupied, and I was able to realize that there's a function that HVAC installers like to call optimal start, which is often not optimal. And it was costing, we figured out, probably about $6,000 a year in unneeded electric bills. And we were able to reach out and connect with Train and get them to change their building automation system. Just the settings and controls, it was all done remotely. Nothing had to be fixed in the building. Just to save
Okay,
them,
gotcha.
just to change how their HVAC stuff was kicking on in the morning before anybody was in the building. It was
Okay.
how it was ramping up. So that kind of stuff, I can identify patterns of usage in your building.
Okay.
So, so then just some other projects GCE works on is we've been doing a lot around electric vehicle education and infrastructure. We help with grant assistance for getting charging stations put in. We do EV ride and drives to just get electric vehicles out there, and then we also do a lot of the workshops in Spanish, just to make sure we're trying to get everybody the information. And you can go to the next slide. And then in June, we have the last few years done a bike to work day, bike there. Last year we did a bike there week, or it might have been the whole month. So this year was focused just on bike to work day. We did an e-bike giveaway. We partnered with some local businesses. I believe the new bike shop in Newcastle. There were breakfast stations at the Rafta Park and Rides, and we did some activities through all the libraries in the county. And next slide. So this year, over the last 6 months, we've been working on updating the Garfield Clean Energy Action Plan, and this is an action plan that we've used to fuel the projects that Garfield Clean Energy works on. The last plan was in 2017, and so this was an update. We did 3 workshops and reached out to people all over the county to get input on what the strategies and what the goals needed to be to put Garfield County in the right direction. The GCE board approved the new goals on the 14th, and this plan is poised to position the region well for state and federal funding, as well as expanding the re-energize funding to help our Garfield County residents. So for 2023, we are using the new Energy Action Plan strategies combined with our annual targets to mobilize additional investment. The planning group emphasized a need for creating additional ways to provide low and middle income family programs. So we have the re-energize, but we're looking at more ways to really expand those programs and funding. We have increased rebates for efficiency measures at homes, looking to increase rebates for access to solar and to accelerate local solar projects and community-based solar. And we really had a big focus on making sure we get help to those who need the rebates. With a lot of emphasis on the low income, and then on making sure we have Spanish and translation for all of those programs. And I believe we are really appreciative of the town of Silt's input and participation in Garfield Clean Energy as well. I think we're done,
Right.
unless you have any more questions about the programs.
I have a few
Yeah.
questions. I don't know if anybody else
Go ahead.
has anything. And a couple of these are just informational things. Do you know how much electricity for the United States is produced by solar?
That would be a good thing for us to be able to whip out.
Would be.
I do not. And I think if I threw out a number, I'd be afraid to get it wrong. Solar and wind, cumulative, all various renewable resources, it is still relatively small. It obviously is the fastest growing energy sector. It's renewable energy, and I know that we are depending more upon natural gas and less on coal nationwide, and especially in Colorado.
And I know that our utilities, so Xcel Energy here currently has a fair-sized mix. The percentage is escaping me at the moment. It's somewhere around 40%. Does that sound right? 30%?
I'm hesitant to say because I'll get it
I
wrong.
know.
It's
But
something we could answer for you that we could.
I've got a chart, so I could share it.
Yeah.
But they do have a mix of renewables, and Xcel Energy has a goal by 2030 to be 80% renewable for all the electricity they provide, and 90 to 95% by 2050. The last few percentages are going to be pretty hard for a utility that big.
That
but,
big to get to. Okay. And then there's always talk about solar, and the biggest use of electrical energy in the United States is for climate control, heating and cooling of indoor spaces. There are minimal programs that help with hydronic solar.
Very few.
Very few.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's basically not being done anymore. The phrase you'll like to use, the phrase solar thermal, which isn't a great phrase, but solar hot water. This is we're geographically in a small pocket where solar thermal peaked for a while, got relatively large, and I think it's because there were some folks in the community regionally who had businesses building out. I think Solar Energy International influenced a little bit, but it is basically not being done. And it isn't just in the US, it is just basically not being done to any scale anywhere in the world anymore. Heat pump technology has come so far and it is so much more dependable, and all of the various systems that go into, if you want to harness the sun to heat and cool your spaces, heat pumps are the way to do it. It's just what's been proven out over time. My understanding is the majority of the solar thermal systems that are out there, a lot of them are not working.
Yeah, I fix a lot of them. They don't work well, but there are good products out there, but they're expensive, so nobody uses it.
When you see something just not happening that has been around for that long, that got that many tries, it's not the most practical way. We've at the time when that technology peaked, we weren't where we are right now with heat pumps. So we didn't have the capacity to do it electrically then, like we do now.
Right. The whole heat pump thing, though, talking to the major manufacturers of those appliances, have told us in the industry that they don't have the technology to get to the next step. They're stuck where they're at because they don't have refrigerants available to go to the next
And where they are is perfectly
level.
fine for us. Where they are right now perfectly suits and serves our climate. I started my career in Vermont, for the record. It's colder there. It's harsher by far. And they have to bring the cattle indoors in the winter, if that tells you anything. So where heat pump technology is right now, the shortcomings are anything hydronic, large commercial buildings. The fact that most of our large commercial buildings are heated with boilers. There are issues there in retrofits, but we don't have so many challenges in new construction. The bigger buildings, we have some workforce issues, getting folks that are willing to learn to install VRFs in the way so that they will work. What's happening is we've got bad VRF installs, so we look at it and we see the technology is bad. Mostly we have bad installs. So the science is there, the technology is there. There's a lag for the big buildings in getting it on the ground in our region, really nationwide. For smaller buildings, I'm not concerned about the technology at all. For, the youth zone building that we mentioned earlier, that's a 9,000 square foot building that's going to be served by rooftop units, all heat pump rooftop units. They're not huge. They're, 5-ton rooftop units by a series of them. So that's the smaller technology is fully there. The bigger stuff, we're at a bit of a growing phase.
And then this is an area of oil and gas. So does GCE use any of its funds to lobby or promote the stoppage of using oil and gas?
Yes.
Okay.
We also work really closely with the oil and gas providers. I work with Black Hills Energy on a regular basis to bring rebates to gas users. We mentioned there's kind of a gap for large buildings in the technology right now. If you have a boiler in a large building, I'm not going to push you to try to. That's the technology. That's where we're at right now for large boilers, and we'll work with Black Hills Energy and bring them in and get your rebates, and they can claim their savings, which is essential to, they're required to claim savings. So us connecting them, this year their small business rebate program, with 1 day with me, they met their entire savings goal for the whole year when we took them up to the caverns in the spring. So we are working closely with them, but electrification is our focus, largely our focus.
Okay. So just for the record on that, I am 100% against giving money to a organization that is fighting to put our citizens out of business and require them to change jobs.
Yeah, that's a big deal. It's a great question. I mean, we are in the oil and gas part of the state. And we've had many discussions here as a town board over the last number of years about making sure that we support that industry. And it's at least been a focus of Mayor Eichel's. It's been a focus of mine. I can't speak for any of the other board members, but based on that information, I would follow suit with Mayor Eichel. In fact, I think at some point in our town, I may be wrong on this, but I feel like we even passed a resolution stating our support for the oil and gas industry.
We did.
Maybe in 2018 or 2019.
Remember
Yep. So that would be a direct conflict.
I wish I was more articulate to talk about how the long term, the timeline of the transition that is happening, not just in Colorado or in Garfield County, but worldwide. And the movement in building codes is all toward electrification, and there are documented reasons for that. I don't think anyone is going to ask me to be. I mean, no one on my side is going to ask me to beat around the bush about those reasons. So we definitely don't want to. We're not looking to put any individuals out of their homes or their jobs. My partner supports oil and gas. I mean, in ways that are about making it healthy and doing the good work and doing it the ways that it can be done.
I don't know that we have a specific issue with what you had just stated. I think the direct question was, does your organization lobby against the oil and gas industry and the production?
No, I'm sorry. We promote electrification and we promote the reduction of the usage of fossil fuels to heat and cool buildings, but we don't
ask
lobby.
your question again just to make sure.
Yeah, the question was, do any funds from GCE go to lobby or promote the stoppage of using oil and gas?
I think I didn't take your term lobby literally enough. We don't lobby. I work to promote electrification. That's a colloquial use of lobbying. So we don't do any political lobbying, but we do promote. I spend my time encouraging folks to get off gas where it is not too much of a pain point for them. And I also support people installing new good gas equipment where that's the best thing for them.
Okay. And one of the main goals for the Energy Action Plan, we added a goal this year that wasn't in the previous plan, is workforce development. So part of that goal is making sure that we're not leaving behind anybody in any of our workforces. So in addressing that, because we know that this area relies heavily on oil and gas industry. So it is, it's not something we lobby against. I don't know if we would survive if we did.
Well, we just don't lobby.
We don't lobby.
I mean, as far as actual.
We don't lobby
literal-
for anything.
The actual meaning of the word lobby, that's
Lobby,
something that
okay.
we do.
Yeah.
So my question is the science there for all this? Because like you look at California and they're telling people not to cool their homes when it's hottest out.
That actually, just for the record, they just had their hottest day ever on record. There were no brownouts due to cooling loads.
That's just one day.
One
You're
day,
bringing
all
up one
summer.
day. He's bringing up scenarios that
Summer,
have
we heard in the
happened.
news over and over.
It actually didn't happen. What we heard about was a lot of preparation. And what we can speak concretely to is the one and only day that Xcel Energy actually did. So you guys may have heard there's a program through Xcel Energy that you can sign up for to get a discount on your rate if you agree to have some demand restrictions during peak demands with Xcel Energy.
I have those on my air conditioners, and it's the worst program ever.
Yeah.
It's
They've
so
only
hot
ever done
out.
it-
It's so hot out, and I can't cool my house. I'm
Wait,
sorry.
no, they've
It's
only ever
terrible.
done it once. They just did it once this year.
What's that?
You had it. You had your.
I didn't know it was on. I have 2 AC compressors at my house. I didn't know they were on there when I bought my home. And the first time it happened was actually a couple years ago. It was so hot out, and it got so hot in my house. I turned my AC on. My thermostats say it's on. It's not kicking on. I even paid an HVAC tech
Let's
to come
talk
out
about
and
this.
fix my. And he's like, "No, man." He's like, "It's the switch right here." He's like,
Oh, that's not what I'm talking
Yeah,
about.
that's a
Sorry.
different
That's
program.
not what I'm
"Oh,
talking-
okay."
So what I.
That program's terrible, just so everybody knows.
That's not what we're
That's a
talking about.
different
What we're
piece of
talking about-
equipment, yeah.
Oh, okay.
What we're talking about is related to the brownouts and blackouts of peak
Right.
demand during AC loads, when the utilities can't cover the loads. There are programs that a person can sign up for
Okay.
that says that during those peak demands, you can take charge of my thermostat and you can restrict my loads. going
Oh,
from
I've
my
heard
home.
that too. Yeah.
They did it once this summer, and the initial immediate uproar was, oh my gosh, Xcel Energy took over people's thermostats without them realizing it. Every one of those people had signed up voluntarily.
So they
first of all.
agreed to it.
It wasn't because of the temperature, and it wasn't because of
No, I'm
AC
talking
loads.
about them
It was-
asking
Well, no,
not
I'd like
to.
to finish this. It was because a coal plant shut down for the day, and they had a reduced capacity. So this was part of their grid stabilization system. Was like, well, we have this one avenue where we can reduce loads for the day. It had nothing to do with air conditioners overloading. It was because a coal plant shut down temporarily.
Gotcha.
So I'm just
Coal
mentioning that.
plant shut down, so the need was there. So when they're shutting down these coal plants, the need's gonna be there.
It was an unplanned outage.
We're intentionally shutting them down.
Yeah, yeah.
So
No,
the
well,
need's gonna be there.
shifting
That's what I'm asking, is
generation.
the science there? And it's-
Yeah,
I mean, you
I
just
believe
said
it is
basically not,
concretely.
because that coal plant shut down for a day, and the need was there for everyone to stop.
And it worked. It worked out great. It worked exactly as
It
planned.
worked out for them to shut people's powers off.
No one,
so they-
no, it didn't. No one lost their power. They curtailed the loads
Oh, they
from individual
lowered it,
homes.
so they couldn't turn the AC where they needed it.
Over 70, I
Right.
think it is. I'm sorry, below 70. So what they did was they curtailed the demand. No one lost power,
Still
and that
talking
was
circles.
the point of the program was to make sure no
Sorry,
one.
but yeah.
We don't mean to give you a hard
No,
time.
no, no.
but
I just
I
want to
think
make sure you
I just-
understand.
yeah.
I love that you're here, because these are thoughts that I go through my mind when I hear all this stuff, and it's good to talk to people that know the other
It's
side of the
important
coin.
to point out that no one lost power. Do we understand that? And that that Xcel probably has never shut off your air conditioning. I just want to make sure we understand that.
Oh yeah, no, he knows what switches
I know
I'm
what
talking
You're
device.
about.
talking about outdoor reset, I think, is probably what you're
It's
talking about.
it's a little program you sign up for that
Yeah.
they do turn your condenser on and off.
They sure do.
Well, they cap out your demand at the
Yeah,
limit.
yeah.
But what's important
Uh-oh.
to say is it worked. So yeah, the science is there.
Speaking of power, going,
Yeah, and it's all about shifting demand. It's all about shifting load and where the production is coming from, and it's a phased process.
And
Yeah.
that would have only happened if you had signed up for it. So if you had willingly signed up for that program, that's
Right.
the only way they would
No
have
one
reduced
lost
any
power.
power.
No one lost any power in California.
Maybe
Not for
just in
that
interest of moving this whole thing forward, they're asking for a couple $1,000s, and then we'll talk about that. I like the program where they help people make their house more energy efficient. We're getting pretty deep into the whole
Yeah.
renewable energy thing, which I don't know if that was the point of this whole discussion. So
I do want to ask a follow-up question. Lobbying is a very specific
We don't.
political activity. Understood. What other political activities would you potentially be using the town's funds for
we don't do any political action of any sort.
No supporting of candidates,
No.
no PAC funding, no nothing.
No. I was taking, like I said, I was taking more of a colloquial meaning of the word lobbying. I advocate for electrification, and I advocate for the reduction of your carbon footprint in individual buildings. But we don't do any political action of any sort.
And as DCER prime focus is on helping the residents of Garfield County.
Yeah.
Saving money is really, that is
Yeah.
the top, is we want to help people in Garfield County save money.
How much are you asking?
$3,100.
3,100.
Yeah.
And we have it built into the budget for 2023, so when you consider the budget on December 12th, or whatever day that is, or before, you can certainly add to it, like you have other nonprofits, or you can call it back, or whatever you want to do.
You bet.
Okay.
Thanks, Jeff.
So you don't need to take a vote tonight,
I
guess.
guess.
is what I'm-
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and the funding is directly, and it directly helps the residents of Silt. And we showed you the new energy cap, and helping the organization, the town of Silt, save energy, and just monitoring that regularly for you.
Yeah, I'll just go back and remind the
Yeah.
earlier discussion, they helped, insulate attics
Insulate,
and
yeah.
do to,
No, I
like,
know.
I mean, that skirt, like, all good there. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And the
cool.
energy cap monitoring tool that you asked about, how can we find that how can we use that to save energy for the town? Anybody that's curious and wants to get a login can look at it and can ask us to develop custom dashboards to see your energy costs or usage in different ways. We created a set bunch of default views, but they can all be customized based on anyone's requests. And some of our customers are really using them for their accounting. And so that's something that maybe could be useful to the town of Silt. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you for all the information.
Right.
Yes,
Thank you
thank
for
you.
having us.
Thank you for sitting through the whole board meeting. Crazy.
We thought we were on at 7. So, I'm glad we weren't late. Thanks for your time.
I think Carolyn too, right? Is that,
Yeah,
that's
Carolyn.
she's been sitting back there.
Someone wake Carolyn up, she's on next.
You're on next.
Supposed to be an hour ago. Sorry, Carolyn.
No worries. Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I'm going to ask to be excused.
All right.
My phone meter's.
Your fund meter's over? Okay.
Crash here.
All right.
Okay.
Yes, go take care of
I'll go
yourself, Jerry.
fast.
Yeah, take
Thanks
care of
for
yourself.
coming,
You said,
Jerry.
Yeah,
All right, I get it.
I just don't
Yeah,
think
no
I'll
better,
make it to
Jerry.
the end.
No,
Yeah,
no
this one,
problem, buddy.
this could be another lengthy one.
Another lengthy one.
Apologize for that.
Hey, we get it. I'm with you though, man. I want 65. I want 65.
See you, Jerry.
All right, bye, Jerry.
Bye, Jerry.
Good night, Jerry.
Okay, Jerry. Yeah.
Take that into the record.
We'll be here.
Right.
I know it. Swamp cooler too.
All right, the next item on the agenda is the housing discussion with Carolyn Tucker, and I will turn us over to Administrator Lehman, who will.
Do we need to
Perfect.
skip?
I'm not going to spend a lot of time introducing this topic, but we were asked some time ago, the town of Silt was asked some time ago to participate in a new housing coalition that had sprung forth up in the Roaring Fork Valley. They've since come to be known as the West Mountain Regional Housing Coalition. That includes communities from Parachute to Aspen. And, we've had a lot of conversations about this group and about housing in general. Derek brought this up a couple of months ago, and a couple of other board members asked to bring this forward. So, I was looking for someone who could speak maybe dispassionately and authoritatively about housing and jobs and how these things all connect together. And I couldn't think of anybody better than our own neighbor here, Carolyn Tucker. So she's the source of the packet in your packet.
Yeah, sorry about that.
But, it's valuable information. It's this housing study that was done a couple of years ago, and I hope you'll take a look at it at some point. So without further ado, Carolyn Tucker.
Thank you, Jeff, and thank you, Board of Trustees, for having me, and all the good, strong work you do, and how late you go on Monday nights, for sure. I am Carolyn Tucker. I'm with the Colorado Workforce Center, so I'm based in Glenwood, live up on Silt Mesa, and I actually cover the territory from Summit County all the way to Parachute, a 5-county region for the Northwest workforce area. So what we do is primarily, next slide, please. Sheila, Nicole, there we go. So you can see some of the workforce center services. The job seeker side is what my colleagues do, and they work specifically with those looking for work, looking for upskilling opportunities, and then I work on the employer side. So I actually work with the businesses on talent development, pipeline development. We also do a lot of labor market data, which you'll see tonight, wage analysis, job fairs, and on the job training. What we're trying to do is actually develop some apprenticeships in the area to, again, support some livable wage jobs, and we're working with a number of different industries on that. I'm sure you've all seen signs like this around the area. There's a couple reasons why. There's quite a few reasons why. Next slide, please. This is what's been happening over the pandemic, and it is continuing as we move forward. So we've had a ton of folks retire. Some people have just said, hey, the work is not what I like right now. Things have changed a lot. I am able to retire because my house is worth a ton of money. The stock market, until recently, was doing really well, so they stepped out of the workforce. We all knew that the baby boomers were moving out. This just exacerbated that trend. Slowing U.S. birth rates, that's something that we noticed 10, 15 years ago. That is going to continue as well. So this labor shortage we're in right now will continue. These are two trends that are going to continue. So businesses need to adapt and actually find new strategies, and that's what we're here to talk at the Workforce Center. Male prime age folks, the gentlemen, their participation in the labor force has dropped. We're not really sure why. Someone had said, quite honestly, a study said gaming has taken them out of the workforce, but there's also a big increase in gig labor, part-time labor, under-the-table labor. 1.8 million women have dropped out of the workforce. They're slowly climbing back in, but when schools closed and all that stuff happened, the women were primarily the ones that were taking care of the kids and homeschooling. Decline in visa workers, everything shut down. Limited impact of unemployment benefits. Those ended a year and a half ago. So the reason why we have a labor shortage is not coincide with increased unemployment benefits. And of course, we're still under the public health emergency order. So that's what's going on in the labor force. So in your packet, I gave you a ton of information, and I don't expect you to have read it all, but it's really good background for where we are. So in Garfield County, you can see the economic overview. And just to give you an idea of the regional unemployment, the median household, which is a little high, that actually includes investments. So when you pull that out a little bit, it's lower than that. Next slide, please. So here's who we are. The largest occupations in Garfield County, you can see at the very top is construction and extraction. So we're talking oil and gas, we're talking construction. And then you can see all the way down your food preparation and serving related. Those are your food service and restaurants. Your healthcare is in there. And then down at the bottom is legal and military only. So if you look at that, what I did is I put some wages attached to that. So oil and gas and construction, the average wage is about $24 an hour, and then it starts to drop until you get to legal, which is $45 an hour, about. So the largest occupations we have, numbers of jobs, have a wage, some of the larger ones, $18 and $14 an hour. That's who we have in our workforce. Next slide, please. And here's this is, again, I just extrapolated this, the median hourly earnings. So you can see that the larger I put some arrows there. The larger groups of occupations that we have, the number of jobs, are halfway down the hourly wage cycle, if you will. So our food prep, those are your $14, $15 an hour folk. And the reason I say that is, next slide, please. He cut off my microphone because I speak so loud.
It's just reverberating.
Waking everybody up here. So here's this is a study. This is actually a calculator from MIT. And it's a living wage calculation. And what they do is they do a living wage calculation for all the different counties in the U.S. And they take what the average rent is or the mortgage rate, what childcare would be, what food, all those things you have in a household budget. And it works out to something along these lines. So a single adult, living wage is $18 an hour. So if you are working in a restaurant or serving or something like that, unless you get really good tips, you got to double up or triple up with a roommate. And then you can see across a continuum that two adults both working, they need to make each $13.86 with 0 kids, but then they need to make, or that 5.
Hard to see.
That is 5. That's 3, 32. $32 an hour. And that is where our population is. The minimum wage for 2022 is $12.50 an hour. And there are businesses, even though everyone says we're raising wages, there are still businesses that pay $12.56 and don't have any benefits. And those are jobs that some people have to have, or those are the ones that the only ones that they are skilled to do. Minimum wage goes up to $13.65 January 1st, but still it's below that $15. $15 is $31,000 a year. So I give this to you to show you that there's a mix of incomes. And what these ladies before us were talking about from an energy perspective, energy prices are going up. That's putting the squeeze on folks. Housing, childcare, transportation, everything is putting the squeeze on folks that aren't making enough money to have a little bit of wiggle room. Next slide, please. So here's your workforce in and out of Garfield County. And it's somewhat equal. You've got the dark green up on the top right. The dark green is the folks that are employed in Garfield County but live outside of it. Okay, so they commute in outside Eagle, Pitkin, Mesa County. And then that light green is the folks that live in Garfield County, but they commute out. So they might commute up to Aspen or over to Mesa. So we have this flow throughout this, it's not even Tri-County anymore. Mesa County gets involved too. So people at Parachute, they had their better jobs in Grand Junction. Oil and gas, a lot of those guys come in from Mesa County. So that's just kind of an idea about the flow in and out of the county. Next slide, please. The commuting patterns, again, what I wanted to point out here is 45% on the left, 45% of the population commutes over 25 miles to work. Mm-hmm. So when we talk about gas prices increasing or cars or anything like that, that again puts a struggle on folks. Your economic engines in this area are Aspen, Glenwood, Eagle with the airport, and Grand Junction, and Rifle. So people have got it wherever they're living, those are the primary places they're going for work. And you can see on the right where the majority of folks are going to. So 22% of the workforce is going into Glenwood. Rifle has a pretty good share. Aspen has 6.7%. So people are driving all over the place. And whoever is at the Come and Go at 6:30 in the morning, I do my own personal economic development at the Come and Go, at the Rifle, at the Miners Claim. you can see everybody heading out. It's no secret whatsoever. And then coming backed up on the off-ramp. Next slide, please. Conversely, at Pitkin County imports more than 60% of their workforce. No shock why very few people can afford to live there for the wages that they're working. Again, this is just not rocket science, this is obvious, but the data is here to show that. And then some other people have said, anecdotally, that they love to work in Aspen. It's beautiful and it's got this really nice energy and vibe, but it's not their community. They wouldn't live there if they wanted to, if they could. They want to live someplace else. So that's kind of a big employment sucker, if you will, because the jobs pay well and there's a lot of variety up there. Next slide, please. So, well, let's talk about housing. And I know you guys are very well versed in housing and have heard everything about housing, but just as a reminder, here's the housing continuum. And when we talk about housing, it's not just the number of housing units that we're putting in, it's the type of housing that we're putting in. So on the left side, you have your homeless population, and then your emergency shelters, all the way up to your market home. And people go back and forth and back and forth. And in the middle here are your apartment buildings, like it's going on east of town, those apartments that are going on. We've got single families going up to the north. We've got tiny homes over across the river. And this is how people move. So a high schooler gets out of high school, says, I'm not living in my mom and dad's basement anymore. I'm going to get an apartment with my buddies. That's that type of demo. Or someone who's not making a lot of money and can afford a decent rental apartment. Townhomes are a nice bridge to single family. And then single family, and then what happens when you're an empty nester? You're actually going back down the continuum to a house, to a townhome, senior living, or you're downsizing. What's happening right now is we don't have the inventory and we don't have the variety to allow anyone to move. And so mom and dad are stuck in a 4,500 square foot house that they raised 4 kids in, but they have nowhere to go because there's not other options of different housing types. So that's kind of where Garfield County is, but just about everybody else is. We have underbuilt housing inventory for many years. Next slide, please. I'll go fast. You guys are doing. Are you okay with everything? My pace?
Yeah.
So this is from Elizabeth Garner's. She's a state demographer, and so this is from one of her housing or her slideshows that was a recording that I sent you that she gave to the county commissioners in October. So you can see that the growth in housing has dramatically changed and not kept up with the growth of the state. So it's pretty dramatic. Front Range has done better than others. Mesa has actually jumped into this recently. So we don't have enough housing units. Next slide, please. And here is the housing unit change. In other words, if you look on the left of the legend, Garfield County is that first green, the second one down. We have increased our housing supply 0.1 to 1%. So that's that. Next slide, please. And this is from the Realtors Association. And the thing on this, it's a little busy slide, but if you look on September, under the median sales price from 2021 to 2022, there's an 18% increase in median sales in Garfield County. I don't have the breakdown. I'm still looking for the breakdown from municipality to municipality, but this is from a county perspective. And then in your townhomes or your condos, which usually are a decent step up for people to acquire, that was a 48% increase in median sales. Next slide, please. It's not all doom and gloom. It really isn't. It's challenging, but this is really basically what we have. Housing across the board has increased 20 to 30%. Wages have risen approximately 6 to 8%.
Sorry, on that first bullet point, when you say housing, you're talking the cost of housing has increased 20 to 30%?
The sale price.
Yeah, right, the cost,
Yeah,
okay, yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Wages, even though McDonald's is paying $18 an hour and Wendy's is paying $19 an hour, we still haven't seen the increase in wages that would keep up with the cost of housing. Inflation over the past 12 months has averaged 9.1%, so there goes your any type of your gains on your wage or your wage increase. Building costs have increased, supply chain issues, and the cost of building, sometimes I've heard anywhere between $300 to $400 to build a new house. So we're talking about an affordability on a number of fronts that are squeezing folks. Next slide, please. Bottom line is there's a strong demand. There were low interest rates. And so all of that housing went, was gobbled up. And now you're seeing the brakes come on with higher interest rates, but still we don't have that inventory. And there's a hesitancy on builders with the current economic situation to step in. So, next slide, please. So one of the things that happens when I go home at night is my head is full of explosions because there's no easy way to tackle this. It's complicated and it's complex, and it comes in with public-private partnerships, and it comes in with creativity, and it comes in with our friends at the West Mountain Housing Coalition. There are some positives that are going on, though. There are those public-private partnerships. So Eagle County and Colorado Mountain College came up with a solution and got it done in like 5 weeks. CMC and Edwards had land, Eagle County had money and design, and they came together and said, let's build 32 units of employee housing, and we'll set some aside for CMC and some aside for Edwards, or the Eagle County. Glenwood Caverns and Iron Mountain Hot Springs, they built their own. Aspen Ski Co. basically built Willets.
Yep.
Derek, Roaring Fork Schools and Habitat. They came together and built employee housing. And then RAFTA just announced that they were buying the Affordable Inn and converting that to affordable housing for their employees. And what's happening is that even at a middle management level, I mean, decent money, we're talking maybe low sixes, maybe high 5 figures. Folks come into the area and they can't find anything. And even though they are a good person and a good fit for the job, they say, you know what? I can't afford a house here. I'm going to look elsewhere. I'm going to turn down the job. So it's starting to impact our ability to continue business. Next slide, please. So this is from our friends at Community Builders. I don't know if you all know Clark. He's Community Builders is based in Glenwood, and they're a tremendous resource for rethinking housing. They've got a couple projects going on in the West, including Montana and Utah. But not only are we talking about money and affordability, but we're also talking the fabric of a community. And I got to tell you, I love Silt as a community. And how we move forward in building this community, it comes into the community fabric of our people driving 4 hours of the day just to get to work. Now that cuts into volunteer opportunities and family opportunities and obligations. So these are just some of the things that Community Builders brings along. The housing choices, the fact that more baby boomers are retiring, millennials are stepping into the workforce, into home ownership, and we need to diversify those home options. Next slide, please. Again, more of a community implications, and I don't need to read all this stuff from a time perspective, but there are other things that go into housing to make a community and the fabric of a town. Next slide, please. Those social implications, they do mean a lot. We do see here Parachute to Aspen commutes quite often. That's 180 miles round trip a day. And no real good public transportation to do that. Next slide, please. So here's some of the resources, and I talked a little bit about community builders. The West Mountain Regional Housing Coalition, you know, this is the group that started out of the Department of Labor and Employment, or Department of Local Affairs, the Roadmap to Recovery. And the Aspen to Glenwood focused on housing. And so that's where this housing coalition came from, is how do we look at housing and what resources can we bring to the table, be it a buy-down project, be it land banking, be it some type of subsidy. What can we do to impact this housing issue? CHAFA is another resource in the area. Habitat's done a lot of work here in Silt. There's that statewide ballot initiative about housing. And then also Glenwood Springs has an affordable housing ballot initiative. So there's a lot of activity going on. I don't have any answers. I just want to, you know, kind of connect the dots that it's economic, it's workforce, it's housing, and it's all those different pressures that are impacting what's going on. So not that I dump it all on you, but just to give you an overview and a background of lots of stuff going on, lots of resources. I think Silt's got a lot of, like I said, a lot of different types of housing going in, and you've got the land, and you've got the community base to do those things. The region that I talked about, the Aspen to Parachute and stuff, we're all struggling with the affordable housing issue. Mm-hmm. And I believe that's it. Yes, so there's my contact information if I can answer any questions, or I know it's late, and I thank you so much for your time and patience with all this, but just kind of an overview of all the things going on from a housing perspective.
I think one of the reasons we wanted to kind of bring this up in this group was, I don't know how, I mean, while I've been here, we've not had this conversation. And I would never say Silt's ahead of the curve on this, because we're probably not, but we're probably ahead of the curve, farther ahead of the curve than some other communities that have dealt with this. And I don't know that anybody has a magic bullet, but I think to the extent that town government would want to get involved in some kind of program, it's worth putting it out there and having the conversation. I think this was just meant to be sort of a starting point, and see where we want to go from here.
You know, one of the things about Western Garfield County is that we've got land, and we've got somewhat affordable land, and we've got some space. And other communities in the area going to the east don't necessarily have that luxury. And so sometimes private market that's happening right now is working great. But it's just something to keep in mind, and those are the conversations going on. There are some positives with the Housing Coalition as far as what they're trying to position themselves is as an entity that can take advantage of all the ARPA money coming down. Big, millions of dollars to address affordable housing. And is that something that this area needs, or is the private market doing itself? But those types of opportunities that's what's floating around out there. How do we crack this nut?
I have a question about the statewide ballot initiative. and I don't know if you could answer that or not, but I have it right here. But my question is, it says, you know, if it passes for projects to qualify for funding, the local governments where the projects are located must commit to increasing affordable housing by 3% each year. So a small town like us, how does that, because if I'm reading it correctly, it's 3%, then it turns to 6, 9, 12. So how does a small town like us, you know, afford that? And the other part of it says, if a local government chooses not to meet these requirements, or if it fails to achieve its affordable housing goals, projects in that municipality or county will be temporarily ineligible for funding from these programs. So the way I'm reading it, like a small town like Silt, we're at a disadvantage if this passes.
I am not an expert, disclaimer on that, but as you've read that in your questions, that's what I read into that as well. I think the question is to a CHAFA and a Department of Local Affairs is, how does this legislation affect the money coming down from DOLA, the assistance coming down from DOLA and CHAFA? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But
That's a good thing to look into. What do you think? You're spearheading this. I want to know what you're thinking.
My main takeaway, it's good to see you again. Full disclosure, we worked together on the Economic Development Committee.
Yes.
Pre-pandemic. The housing continuum is a big one for me. I'd like to see, like, where does our current inventory fit across those various pieces? And when we talk about all these new developments coming down, like, how do we, as a group, create a balance between those so they're not steeped at one end or the other or just in the middle? You know, minimize some of those peaks and valleys when we're thinking about longer term growth, 5, 10, 15 years, probably when none of us are in these chairs anymore, but some of you may want to be. I don't want to exclude anyone, but you get that was my big takeaways. I'd love to see how our numbers now measure up against those different points on the continuum. And to your point, with the tiny homes and stuff like that, we've got some mobile homes that we don't know what's going to come of them soon. That chart factors perfectly into that discussion for me. I'd love to see where our
Well,
numbers
just
are
because
at.
they're building them doesn't mean they're affordable. The tiny homes are not affordable. That's not, you can't pay $160,000 for a tiny home and $700 for a lot fee.
Right. I think like the way that I view that, and I agree with you, Sam, you're right. Like, that's not affordable housing, and like whatever we have right now is not affordable housing. More to the point of the data, though, the more options that are built, the more homes that are built. So whether that's an apartment, a tiny home, a single family home, a townhome, you know what I'm saying? Like, it just very slowly releases the pressure of the need for housing here, which eventually should help drive the prices down, because then, you know, a buyer looking for a home, they can choose between 10, you know, and maybe try to negotiate on it versus there's like one available, I got to get it right now, like they're paying way too,
Bring a check.
which has been outrageous.
Right.
But the more, that's why, you know, like, we need these apartments to be built. It's taking forever, but like, people need options, you know what I mean? So whether it's through, I didn't know you guys were on that economic development, you know, board or whatever. I always go back to like the fact that Silt's an opportunity zone, you know, and taking that prospectus that we have and really trying to leverage the fact that we are an opportunity zone, much like the money that's here with that development, and like continue to try to attract those developers to come here and develop Silt. You know what I mean? We do have a lot of local home builders, but they're building 1, 2, maybe 3 homes a year. It no way can keep up with the demand of what's going on. You know what I mean?
And also those houses are, you know, $400 a square foot. So,
Yeah.
so when you're talking about a family of 4 or even a family of 3, you know, and you have an apartment building, and if that's a private industry, that's great, you know, private landlord and stuff. But what are they setting the rents at? You know, the townhomes that went in West Glenwood.
The Six Canyon ones,
Yeah,
or whatever.
yeah, $2,500 for a condo. I'm sorry, if you're only bringing home $1,200, maybe $2,000, how are you doing your 30%? You know, so those, you know, if we work backwards, who are our people? And if you're making, you know, I don't know, even 40,000, 30,000. How do you drop that down? And that's what's really affordable to me. It's not the cost of it. It's not saying these are deed restricted, because that works, or these are set aside at affordable, but you set aside 1 and 2 units out of a 10-unit thing, you're really not making a dent to the people that are working that hard. So it's complex, and I wanted just to kind of show you guys the resources that are out there, and people are all talking about it, and we need to.
So how does that go down in Glenwood Springs though? Like I'm thinking of the need there, right, is crazy, and then you have that developer that came in that wanted to develop West Glenwood behind the mall, and like that whole area went up in arms and just basically kicked them out. Said you're not developing this field because we want.
Yeah,
it's like you can't have both, like.
So I feel like I'm taboo because I'm saying no more development. The key, you know what I mean? Just because crime rate goes up, mental health goes down. I mean, there's a whole list of things, but I'm taboo for saying that. For thinking that way.
Right.
And
I don't think you're taboo at all.
You don't? You think
no,
okay.
I know we go back and forth on that a lot. Like I think that if you have a desirable place to live, people are going to want to come live there.
Right.
And the natural progression is it's going to grow. It's just what happens. I don't think you're taboo for that. I just think that growth is inevitable. Growth is okay. Growth is good. I think that we have to determine where's the growth, where's the park, where's the open space, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like it sort of has to happen. But my point to all this is you see the data, it's outrageous, and we all know it, right? But so you have the community that's like, oh my God, the houses are so expensive, we have nowhere to live, and then a developer's like, hey, I'll build some multifamily right here, and everyone's like, beat it,
and everybody's
I don't
He's not in my backyard.
But that was, I mean, if that guy would have came in though, and this is not the market I look at, that guy comes in and says, I want to build a high-rise apartment building here, and they're going to be $600 a month. They have a high-rise apartment building there. It's because it wasn't going to be what they're looking for. They want to show that they made that affordable housing project, not the 2 or 3 deed restricted units that would have been built.
Yeah, and we've gone back and forth on that, right? Like requiring a developer to cap rents or to cap prices. I don't know about that either. It's a really
huge thing, yeah.
Hard discussion.
But the one advantage we have, and to Jeff's point earlier, is that we're much earlier in the growth cycle than some of the communities just to the east. So we can be more proactive. What we see happening in Glenwood and up in Aspen and Basalt and Carbondale, et cetera, they're a bit too far beyond it to really have a strategy. At this point, they're putting out fires. Right, they're trying to put people anywhere they can, and anybody who drives down 133 in Carbondale sees the net result of that, which is all sorts of density on either side of the road and traffic jams and a bit of a cluster.
Oh, for sure.
The good news for Silt is that we're in a much, much earlier stage of growth.
Yeah.
And to your point, we have space, we have land, and relatively speaking,
We just can't
low
build
prices.
Protect it all.
Well, and I think that's the really delicate balance that we have. Between because we represent the people in the town of Silt, right? But then we have a whole host of people that live on Silt Mesa that are they feel like they're a part of Silt, right? And then, so you have a group that doesn't want the growth, right? But then what'll happen is Rifle will grow east to our border, but then Rifle gets all of the economic benefit of the growth, and we don't, right? So they may end up with a community center, community pool, or whatever. So what happens is everybody that lives in Silt doesn't get the benefit of any of those things, and then we got to go travel to Newcastle or Rifle, and then we're taking our hard-earned money and we're putting it into those communities, not our community, if that makes sense. That's why the growth aspect of Silt is important, because we want people to put their money here, but we got to grow it responsibly, and then then we got to factor in the affordability part. It's just
we have to grow as a community, not as a housing hub. If we just develop as a bedroom community, we still get nothing out of it except the people.
Right.
Live here and do everything anywhere else.
Anywhere else.
That doesn't work either.
And I think that's the part of the equation and the discussion is, to your point, is what do you protect?
Yeah.
I mean, you've got, one of those slides is from the Silt Dog Park or the Island Park. It's a treasure, in my opinion. You know, how do you protect that river corridor? I don't know what's going on the north side of the river, the new parcel, but scared the bejesus out of me. They were cutting trees and things of that nature. So, you know, I think it's smart growth. I think it's intelligent growth. I think there's not growth for growth's sake. I don't want to become a rifle as an economic driving engine, but, you know, the sales tax, which I contributed to very well, I think is important to the sustainability of the community. But bike trails, parks, all those different things, but knowing that housing is important, and you've already kind of laid the groundwork for the types of different housing that you've got. And this is a very desirable place. It is. It's not a Newcastle, it's not a rifle, it's a really unique gem. So it is a treasure, and that's your guys' job to shepherd that and to hold that dear. And one other quick thing is, as part of our economic development committee, there was a exercise in the types of businesses that the Silt community wanted to see. And that was really interesting because it was more focused to me. I think, Derek, you might understand or add to this, but on, you know, less water, more environmental, more community-oriented businesses, if I get right, you know, some manufacturing, some light manufacturing type of stuff. It kind of, the community started to talk about what that growth might look like. So anyway, there are lots of tools out there. Happy to talk more. It is complex. It is so interwoven. But it's a good discussion to start, and happy to come back if you want, or bring all my buddies.
To Kyle's point, good growth, to add another word to you said growth is good. I think good growth is good. And when we're talking about making parks better and more attractive, then we're going to attract people who want to participate and use those kinds of facilities. So I don't know how you put a bottle in it or a cork in that bottle, but I think what you have to concentrate on is just good growth.
Yeah.
And to that end, we've taken a phrase that came out of one of your conversations with Dana, and that is to look at the code, revise the code, and revise the comp plan in next year's budget, or next year. So we've put some numbers in the budget to do those things so that we can, you know, if you want to, you know, to look at these kinds of things. There are experts out there in good growth, so, you know, you just got to talk to them, bring them in, and
Yeah.
have them help us through that process.
You're right.
But it's not easy.
In person.
Okay.
In person.
And get another brew pub. I was bummed. Bummed.
Oh, yeah.
We did everything we could do.
I know.
Yeah.
That part's true.
Yeah.
We approved it.
We would try to work with him multiple times.
I
He
talked
approved
to
it
him the
twice.
other day, and he said that Rifle, the community or the municipality rallied around him and started sounded like they did a lot more than we did into getting them down there.
Oh, no, they didn't.
So
Anyway.
Oh, there'll be another one. Well,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, they'll be.
Cool. Well, that was a ton of data, so thanks for all that information.
Yeah, and I probably overdid it, but
No.
hey,
That's fine. Thanks for
Too much
waiting.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
thank you.
Like an hour
and I'm
late.
not yeah. Well, thank you
All right,
all.
thank you very
so
much.
Have a good night.
Will I see you at the next meeting?
When is that?
Talk to that guy.
Yeah, see, this is the hint that I'm getting.
Happy to be there. Happy to be there.
Thanks, Carl.
All right, next item on the agenda is the September 2022 financial report, and I will turn this over to Treasurer Tucker.
So, thank you, Mr. Mayor. 75% of the year has elapsed. We are doing well on sales tax, of course. We're at 95%. use tax, we're at 106% almost. Our trash fees, water service fees, wastewater fees, irrigation fees, they're all very close to our elapsed time or above that. We are actually going to be doing better in the Silt Housing Authority because they brought both checks for September and October today. So we are actually going to be up to date on our revenues as far as rents go for the next time that I present financials. Working steady on getting the budget and getting that finished and getting that to you. And I'll answer any questions that you may have. Oh, sorry, sales tax. Jeff pointed out to me that you have to go back to September of 2019 is the last month that our sales tax was actually less than the prior year's month, if that makes sense.
Yep. And was there a reason for that? Did somebody not pay? Is it?
I didn't see one when I was looking through the sales tax. I didn't see a specific reason. Just, we're a little lower.
Okay.
I do know that a couple of things last year, but it was more in August than it was in September, where we got a larger deposit because of Springborn. And so I had to make that adjustment because they're outside of the city limits, things like that. But it didn't really affect September's
Gotcha.
contribution.
We're still doing great.
We are.
Oh yeah, yeah. We can't complain. We're 10% above where we were last year, so
yeah,
we're doing good.
Okay. Anyone have any questions for Treasurer Tucker?
No. Thanks, Treasurer Tucker.
Thank you.
And thanks for the audit help, too.
Yeah.
Having been through many, they are not fun.
Not fun.
I send them most everything before they even get here, so they're really here for about half a day.
Oh, that would be ideal.
Nice.
Yeah, but the amount of money, the amount of pages that I send them, we have to use a share file. It's quite large, and it takes me a couple weeks to get them all that information, but by the time they actually get here, it's only about half a day that they're here.
All right. Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up is the approval for staff to make consultant selections. Okay, it's time to go home and go to bed. It's over to Administrator Lehman.
You and me both. I'll try to make this short. I think have learned that, and we probably knew this, but maybe we didn't fully understand that if we get our P&A project needs assessment to the state in early December, and I still don't have a drop dead date. I think it's that number. The deadline's still a little bit squishy, but if we get this information to them, we can be included in the process for a December grant application or evaluation. And I shouldn't say grant. This is not a grant. It's the state revolving fund. It's low interest loans and our ability to apply and be eligible for loan forgiveness for a portion of the monies that we're going to need to build our new water plant. And I think we're all in this rush, I guess is not the right word, but we really want to get this done, and we want to get it complete so that we can move forward with this process of knowing how much money we're going to need for the program and how much we're going to be able to get through the state revolving fund, and how much of that will be forgivable loans. We think a certain amount of it will be. So in order to fast track on this approval process, in order to make some of these December deadlines, we'd like to ask the board for the authority for this 4-member group of Trey, Mike Sawyer, Pat Radabaugh, and I to consult and make a decision on these two consultants that we need. Both of them, or one of them for sure, will probably be over the threshold of $25,000. I can make a decision based on a consultant that would be less than 25. Anything over 25, I'd need to bring to the board. So what we're asking for, and I probably should have said this in the first place, take me home too, to give us the authority to make those contributions. We do, or decisions. We do know that one of the environmental assessment services are going to be right around $40,000 for that consultant. For our financial consultant, it was going to be right around 25, although we talked to a guy today that might be closer to 15. So that would be good. So I would just ask you, we've got $100,000 available in the budget to do the work. So it's not an additional line item, won't be subject to a supplemental budget amendment in December. I just ask you for your permission to move this thing forward.
I don't have any reservations about that, do you guys?
Nope.
No.
Should we set some kind of a ceiling, though?
I think it's $100,000.
Yeah, the 100
It looks
grand is in the
like it,
budget.
yeah.
That's the budgetary line, but if the threshold now is 25, for this use case, do we raise it to 50 or 60 or 70 so that there is at least some ceiling on it? I know we're trying to move fast, but thinking from the standpoint of good governance, this limit was put in there back in the day for a reason, I assume. Should we just blow it up? Or should we replace it with a different number?
I should tell you too that we may have 2 environmental bids. The second one has been very difficult to find and difficult to get it to work with. So we may not have a lot to work with. We do have 2 bids for the financial consultant. I think the second one is, well, I won't say where we're going to go, but it's between 25 and, or between 15 and 25 probably. So we don't have a lot to work with, I guess is what I'm saying.
I don't think we need to make a change on that. It's what you're talking about with the ceiling, Derek, and changing that, because we're not changing it as a policy for everything. It's just for this one case.
Yeah.
But I'll go along if everybody else is comfortable with just leaving it open-ended because of the urgency.
Mm-hmm.
I'm fine with it.
Whoops, I feel like we did this once before, actually. Maybe not. Didn't we? For something else? I thought we did.
Should we just put language in there or make consultant selections for the water wastewater project?
Or do we make it applicable through December 31st? I like the idea, Mr. Mayor, apply some sort of structural limit to it.
Because the way the motion is, it has nothing to do with it.
Yeah, the motion is kind of
Specific
vague, to
thing.
be
It's
honest.
just in general,
Yeah.
Well, you saw through me there, Mayor.
I know.
Ruined his master
I know, you want to hire a lot of consultants. but-
Yeah.
Well, and not unironically, a town resident reached out to me. She called me the end of last week, and we had a conversation about why the town is hiring so many consultants. But the conversation, I think at least in part, was predicated on this. And my oversimplified explanation to her was that there are costs of hiring consultants, and there are also costs of training the people you have and the opportunity cost of doing it. And right now, because we're trying to move quickly on major projects, we have to leverage subject matter experts, and we have to do it quickly. And sending Trey to school to learn something, just as a hypothetical example, or someone on his team, it's never going to get done in a timely fashion. And we don't have another good option at this point.
And we don't have the money in the budget to hire somebody to have somebody just
Right,
sitting
and we
around
can't hire an
just to do it.
FTE for one
Everything.
water project.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, I'm fine if it's worded, just this particular project.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to allow town staff, as identified, to make consultant selections for the selection of environmental assessment services and water enterprise revenue/rate modeling consultants based on the criteria most beneficial to the town of Silt, and to report on its selection at a future Board of Trustees meeting.
Second.
Rate modeling?
And just read the top part of it.
Yes.
Okay.
Great modeling.
All right. Okay, we have, and who seconded that one?
One of these two dudes.
So we have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem not as stated, seconded by Trustee Clausen. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
All right. Moving on.
Start work tomorrow.
Yep.
Next up is administrator and staff reports.
Just call your attention to my staff report where I mentioned the Middle Colorado Water District board member that Paula Stepp had asked us to publicize to you all. That's the last time you'll hear about it from me, but I did want to just put it out there one more time.
We unofficially chose Sam Flores for that, so.
You were
just so
chosen
everybody-
in absentia.
So we expect you to fill that application out.
You're a water guy.
You are the water guy.
Water guy.
It was either you or Trey. He's a busy man.
We didn't officially do it because you weren't here, just so you know.
Yeah.
We didn't fill out the application for you, put it that way.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Anything else?
Okay.
Anything else from staff? No? Updates from the board and board comments then. Trustee Henry?
Just a quick reminder about all the Halloween activities going on next week.
Oh, thank you.
Hopefully people will be able to get out there and take part in it. There's a whole lot going on, so hopefully the weather's better than it has been the last 72 hours, 48 hours. That's it from me.
Chili cook-off,
Yeah, chili, trick-or-treating.
trick-or-treating downtown, and then the Family Fall Fest.
Family Fall Fest, that was the one. Thank you, Jeff. That's it for me.
Nothing for me.
Nothing.
I don't have anything.
All right, I do acknowledge that the last meeting I was here via Zoom because I was sick. I probably didn't provide a whole lot of value to that meeting, though I was here. I'm going to advocate that we stop with a hybrid meeting and that we go back to an all in-person meeting, and I'm going to use the example of our financial audit, and we cannot hear what that person is saying. And we're missing information, and it's just not, like, we don't need to do it anymore. Town meetings, in person, no more Zoom. Imagine if Carolyn was trying to give us all that information over Zoom. It would have been half as informative and intriguing as it was with her here in person and us being able to have that conversation face to face. So I would like to encourage the rest of the board members to encourage staff and make a decision at some point to end the hybrid meeting and just do it all in person like we used to before the COVID pandemic. That's all I have.
I got nothing.
Mr. Mayor, make a motion for adjournment.
Second.
Mayor Pro Tem made a motion to adjourn, seconded by Trustee Brittenell.
Aye.
All's in favor?
Aye.
All's opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
All right.